Squeeze in there.
All right, we're going to get started. It's now 7 o'clock. For those of you that would like to participate in the Pledge of Allegiance, the flag is behind me. Please rise.
Oh, boy.
I pledge allegiance. I'd like to welcome you all to the 2018 deliberative session for the town of Wolfeboro. My name is Brandon Walker, and I have the pleasure of serving as your moderator this evening. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the people up front, let me introduce them to you. And when I call your name, if you'd raise your hand, I'd appreciate it. On the Budget Committee, we have Robert O'Brien, we have Robert Lohman, Robert Mulholland, Robert Tuffer, who's the vice chair, John McDonald, who's the chair, Harold Parker, John Burt, down the end, and then Steve Johnson. We also, and Brian Black, former chief of police, and a new grandfather. Congratulations. Small town. We also have the selectmen, Brad Harriman, Dave Bowers, Linda Murray, who's our vice chair, Luke Freudenberg, who's our chair, Dave Senegal, town council, Mark Puffer, our able town manager, Dave Owen, our finance director is Peter Chamberlain, and then our perennial town clerk, Pat Waterman. Before we delve into any substantive matters, there's a few preliminary issues I'd like to deal with. First, there may be some people that are not registered voters, and although we're happy to have you observe democracy in action today, I would like to remind you that you cannot vote. If you do so, it's a criminal offense. For those of you that are not registered voters, you just raise your hand. So we're going to keep our eye on these 3 or 4 people here tonight.
Especially the one in uniform.
So the purpose of this evening's meeting is in part to explain, discuss, and debate those articles that we legally can, but ultimately the purpose is to determine the form of those articles that we'll vote on in March. So we're not going to discuss the substance of the articles tonight. We're not going to vote on the substance. We'll discuss the substance. We won't vote on it because we'll do that again in March. Now there's 34 articles to be voted on this year. Several of those articles will not be discussed this evening because they're not amendable. The first one is Article 1 regarding the election of officers and town officials, and you'll simply vote for those candidates that have decided that they would like to serve this town. We do have 3 contested races, and I will call on various people that are running, and again, if you could raise your hand, I'd appreciate it. So for selectmen, we have 4 people running for 2 slots. Dave Bowers is running again. We have George Fall running right here. Paul O'Brien is right there, and then John White is also running. So those are the 4 running for selectmen for 2 slots. For Budget Committee, we have 5 people running for 3 slots. John Burt on the end here, Bob Mulholland, Harold Parker, James Rouillard, Jim here, and then Daniel Botsford. So those 5 are running for 3 slots. And then for Planning Board, we have 3 people running for 2 positions. Von Dugan is running against Joe Melanson and John Thurston. John's right there. So 2 of the 3 are incumbents. Joe Melanson's the newcomer to that group. So we won't be voting on any of those people this evening. We'll do that in March. We also will not be voting on Articles 2 through 8. Those are Planning Board articles. They concern planning and zoning issues, and they've already had their statutory hearings, so we will not discuss any of those articles this evening. We will, however, discuss Articles 9 through 34. So that's a total of 26 articles this evening. It's a lot of ground to cover. Anyone that would like to amend a particular article, I would request you reduce it to writing and present it to either myself or Pat so that we can accurately present it to you, the voters, and that we have a record for our files. Please keep it simple and straightforward as you can. I also do not permit amendments to amendments on the floor at any given time. We'll just vote one amendment, either up or down, move on to a second one, etc. We also operate under the auspices of SB2, which has three procedural twists regarding amendments. The first is that you cannot kill an article by either tabling or passing over it. Number two, the default budget is not amendable because that amount is set by law. And then three, any articles whose wording is prescribed by law cannot be amended. To the extent you wish to amend an article, you can delete everything but the subject matter. You can change the intent, you can change the purpose, you can change the impact, but you cannot delete the subject matter in any amendment. So those are the substantive rules. Procedurally, I don't follow any particular procedural parliamentary rules. And number two, I generally will recognize the person that submitted a particular article. This year, virtually all the articles except for one was submitted by the selectmen, so I'll call on someone up here on the stage to address an article first. Then we get to Article 34, which is the last one that was by petition. I'll recognize one of the petitioners to speak first on that. For those of you that would like to speak, I'd appreciate if you go to this microphone, state your name, and speak after you're recognized. For those of you that have cell phones, this would be a great time to take them out, make sure that they're turned off so that they do not go off during the meeting. I'll also read each and every article before we discuss it. We do not need to move or second an article. As soon as I read it, we can engage right into a discussion. Any votes that we take tonight will require a simple majority to either pass or fail. There's no supermajorities that are required. And after we discuss a particular article, I would entertain a motion to terminate debate or call the question after a reasonable period of time has elapsed. We only do this once a year. I always waver on the side of letting people speak and not precipitously cutting off debate. You're also all aware that motions can be made prior to a motion to adjourn, and I therefore encourage you all to stay until we actually vote on the very last one. There are a couple of new business matters that will come up, so even though we may be done with Article 34, there's a couple of things that will be discussed, so stick around for that. If you do have to leave, however, and you do not want to have an article that we've discussed be reconsidered this evening, you can move to restrict reconsideration on that particular article, and if that should pass, we will not discuss it again this evening, and you can leave knowing that it won't come up again. And finally, we'll only discuss the subject matter of those things that appear in the warrant. If there's no notice of a particular issue, then we will not be discussing that this evening. So those are basically the same rules that we've had in the past that have worked well for us and that we'll use this evening. And then finally, to remind you all to vote on March 13th, that's Tuesday, right here from 8 in the morning to 7 in the evening. It's a long day for the poll workers that work there. It's 11 hours that we're open, and of course we have to do work before and after. So I'd appreciate you to bring your driver's licenses, get through the line as fast as you can, but also enjoy yourselves while you're here. So let's get to the substantive issues that we came for this evening, and we'll start with Article 9, which is the library renovation and expansion project. So I'll read Article 9. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5 million to be funded as follows. The bond issue not to exceed $4,855,000, said bond amount to be reduced by donations and pledge donations currently estimated at $1.2 million, generated by the Wolfeboro Public Library Foundation, and to authorize the selectmen to transfer the balance of the Library Reserve Fund currently estimated at $22,000 and the balance from the Wolfeboro Public Library Building Fund currently estimated at $123,000. For the purpose of renovating and expanding the Wolfeboro Public Library building to include both the interior and exterior of the building, parking lot, and other site improvements, and to include the cost of architect services, engineering services, construction manager services, and contingencies. Further, authorize the issuance of not more than $4,855,000 of bonds and notes for this purpose in accordance with the Municipal Finance Act, which is RSA Chapter 33, such sum to be reduced by any federal, state, or private funds made available therefore, including the aforementioned pledge donations, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to negotiate and issue such bonds and notes and determine the rate of interest, maturity, and other terms for this purpose. Further, to authorize the Selectmen to accept the gift of all pledge donations currently estimated at $1.2 million generated by the Wolfeboro Public Library Foundation to be used to offset the cost of this project and to reduce the amount needed to be bonded. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 will be 0. For 2019, it's 0.005. For 2020, it's 16 cents per thousand of assessed valuation. This is unanimously recommended by the Selectmen and the Budget Committee. In order for it to pass, because it's a bond, it will need a 60% vote to pass in March. So is there any discussion regarding this article? I understand that Dave Bowers was going to address this first.
The Board of Selectmen has discussed this ad infinitum. I'm audit the trustees meeting of the library. I've been part of the library for quite a few years, and I like to call it Wolfeboro's living room. It's a project that will enhance the town, be good for adults and children alike. Will be a magnet for out-of-towners, and so far I have not heard anyone speak against it, and because I think it's very well thought out, I encourage you to vote for it.
You must be Cindy.
Okay, there we go. I'm Cindy Scott. I'm the library director, and I also have with me Ron Lamar, the architect from La Valley Brensinger, if there's any questions. The library project has been something we've been working on for quite a while, since 2004. We wanted to do a very thoughtful process to come up with the best plan to solve the various problems that we have at the library, and we think this is an excellent plan. The library building is about 40 years old. It opened in 1979, had about 30,000 people through the door the first year. In 2002, we had about 60,000 visits, and now we average 90,000 visits. We have two major issues. One is the functionality and the adaptability of the building, and the second is the mechanical systems and the structure. So, as far as the functionality goes, change the slide. We are having a lot of issues with the noise. We're having issues with lack of seating. We actually have less seating now than when the library opened in 1979. There's not enough workspace for the public or the staff, and we have had volunteers quit because there wasn't anywhere regular that they could work on their projects. We also need additional storage for existing collections, as well as being able to adapt the building to function the new ways that people are using libraries. Libraries have always been changing, but in recent years we've been changing a little bit faster than in the past, so we wanted to create a new facility that would allow us more opportunity to adjust as library usage shifts. So the building design capacity has been exceeded, and the second problem that we have is with the actual mechanical systems and structural. We have problems with the heating system, the electrical system, the plumbing system. We have site water management issues. There's some code compliance issues with the roof structure and with ADA. So all of these things are also being addressed in the new building. We particularly have a problem with the flat roof. It wasn't designed really to carry the snow loads that we have nowadays, and when that metal beam on the right there gets down and starts to hit the grate, we know that we need to shovel the roof. And of course, when you're shoveling a flat roof, you're voiding any warranty that you have on the roof and potentially making holes. And we have quite a few leaks at the library currently, which result in stained ceiling tiles and the need for buckets strategically placed around the library. So the benefits of this project are that we will be solving all of these identified problems, both in the functionality side and on the mechanical system side. We're also going to be addressing issues that we have in the parking lot. It's kind of a dangerous parking lot at this point in time, where there are frequent near misses out there. So the new parking lot, which will be bigger, We'll manage the site water much better, and also we'll have more one-way motion so that we don't have as many problems. We'll also have a drive-up book drop, which seems to be very popular when we mention that to people. Here is the conceptual plan of the library, which you'll see that most of the addition is on the front and a little bit on the side of the building. And particularly, I want you to note the sloped roof. We'll be abandoning in place the existing roof, removing the clerestory and putting on a pitched roof, which is, I think, about 4 or 5 feet taller than the existing building, so it's not going to loom enormously either. The blue is the new portion of the library, which adds about 5,000 square feet to the existing building. We're also shifting around some of the walls. We have a separate children's room there, which creates a much safer condition for children. You don't have exits right by the children's room. You don't have children going to the restroom down a hallway that has an exit to the parking lot. Also, our meeting space is a little bit better than what we have now. Only slightly larger than what we have is the larger room, because we use this facility when we need to have a really large meeting. And we've lined the staff up along the top there so that what drives the need for more staff is library usage and not the building itself. Here's the parking lot, and this shows you the new design for the parking lot. And one of the problems that we've had in the past is that the parking lot that was put in the 90s caused water to flow into our neighbors' yards, and one of the things we want to address is to pull back a little bit from that and keep all of our water on site and not have any of our water exit the site. If approved by the voters, we will be going right to engineering and design work in the summer of 2018. We would begin construction in the fall of 2018, take about a year to build the new addition. Meanwhile, the library gets to stay in the existing building. It's not easy to move a library, so this is very appealing to us. Once the new addition is completed, then we move into the new addition while the renovations occur, which we anticipate taking 6 months. And then the project we anticipate completing in early 2020, opening the full facility. The budget is not to exceed $5 million. We have had wonderful work by the Wolfeboro Public Library Foundation doing fundraising with pledges and donations. As of January 8th, when this slide was made, they had $1.2 million estimated. We also have a small capital reserve fund and a small trust fund that somebody set up many years ago with great foresight that has meant that we haven't had to use any taxpayer money so far, as well as some grants that we received and donations. So far, all of the studies that we have done have all been paid for by private money. So that's it.
Any questions? Any further comments on Article 9?
Thank you very much.
So we do have a proposed amendment. I believe a couple of housekeeping amendments on this. There's a button on the top, John.
John Sandine, representing the Wolfeboro Public Library Foundation. I make a motion to amend Article 9 in the last sentence, beginning, further to authorize the selectmen to accept the gift of all pledged donations. And we make the motion to delete the word all and replace it with donations and. So that last sentence would read, further to authorize the selectmen to accept the gift of donations and pledged donations, currently estimated at $1,200,000, generated by the Wolfeboro Public Library Foundation to be used to offset the cost of the project and to reduce the amount needed to be bonded. And in a further point in the second to last sentence, there is also a spot where it mentions pledge donations, and we'd like to add in front of that donations and pledged donations.
Okay, so is there a second to that? All right, so the essence of this, John, as I understand it, is you basically would like to put the word donations in front of pledge donations to make it clearer that the money that you've accumulated will be used to offset and reduce what we'll fund here.
Correct. We have raised both donations and pledged donations.
Correct.
So we want to be sure we get those in the three places in the article.
So is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It's unanimous. You have a second amendment.
I'm Bob Warheide. I'm the treasurer of the Wolfeboro Public Library Foundation, and I make a motion to amend Article 9 in two places to increase the amount of the Wolfeboro Public Library Foundation's donations and pledge donations from $1,200,000 to $1,300,000.
Is there a second for that? Any discussion? So the essence is they have more money they'd like to give us. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Both carry unanimously. Any further discussion on Article 9? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 10, the construction of the Westwood Drive, subject to betterment assessments, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $263,000 for the layout, design, and construction of Westwood Drive over the existing private rights-of-way as a town road conforming to current construction standards and requirements pursuant to RSA Chapter 231, laying out highways, Section 28 to 33. This project will be subject to better assessment so that all costs of the layout, design, and construction, including applicable interest, surveying costs, legal fees, and other incidental costs, will be assessed against property owners abutting or served thereby. Further, to authorize the issuance of $263,000 worth of bonds or notes for this project in accordance with the provisions of RSA 33, the Municipal Finance Act, and to further authorize the Board of Selectmen to issue and negotiate the rate of interest, maturity, and other terms for this purpose. This project will not result in any increase in the tax rate. The impact for 2018, 19, and 20 is $0 per $1,000. It's unanimously recommended by the Selectmen and the Budget Committee, and because this is a bond, it will require a 3/5 vote. Is there any discussion regarding Article 10? And I believe, Luke, you were going to address this first.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Board of Selectmen had a public hearing on this issue, and the residents of Westwood Drive came to us with the need to want to have their road redone. They'll be taking on the responsibility over a 10-year period of paying the town back through betterment assessments, so it won't cost the taxpayers of Wolfeboro anything, and we'll give them a much better road. Mr. Ford is here for any specific questions anyone might have.
Any questions for Dave?
Well, I'm going to do a little presentation, unfortunately, so
Go right ahead.
skip a couple of slides. But basically, we explained the problem. The property owners have requested a layout. I met with them on site and reviewed the conditions of the road. We made a list of the work required, and we did a cost estimate to, again, to reclaim, regrade, base pave and overlay it, and replace major drainage. This is the road. It's off of College Road, so if you're coming in from Route 28, this is a College Road here. This is the road here. It's a loop road. It's very well developed. Most of the houses are, and there's a little tennis court lane goes down here. Two of the lots are accessed off tennis court lane, but we're only looking at this section of Westwood Drive to be taken over. Again, we did a cost estimate, and we looked at everything that needs to get done in here. Plus, we have a contingency, and we have legal administrators, so the total is $263,000. That's the amount we're looking at bonding. Hopefully, we're going to do the project for less. But we have to have a contingency in there just to make sure we have enough on the bond. The 25 lot owners will be paying a certain amount per year. That'll be broken evenly above the 25 lawn owners over a 10-year period, and they'll be making the payment once a year. And that is the quick, and take any questions if anyone's had any questions about it.
Any questions, comments? Suzanne?
What is the distance of the road?
It is about 2,000, I gotta be... 3,850 feet. 3,850.
Has it been surveyed and recorded?
The
road, is it surveyed and recorded?
I don't know the answer to that.
Is it going to be?
Yes, we're not going to survey the road. We don't need to do a detailed survey. We have the original plans, and that right-of-way is what we're going to be laying out.
The original plan is generated through the subdivision,
Approval, yeah.
so I would assume that that is surveyed and recorded.
The original plan might have been, yeah, but I wasn't around back when it was done.
Then is it going to change in any way in width from the original survey? I mean, the town doesn't want to be, we're taking over that road. It's going to be a town road. We wouldn't want to be taking over something that is surveyed incorrectly or...
Okay, I see where you're going. Yeah, so there's a right-of-way, a 50-foot right-of-way, and the road is a 22-foot wide road within that 50-foot right-of-way. So we're going to take the right-of-way. We'll assure that the road is within the right-of-way, which I've already done. And again, there'll be a final plan to show that.
Do we get a deed for that road when we take it over?
That's a legal question. Mark, do we get an official deed, or do we, this is a quick claim deed? I'm not sure.
You do not need a deed. In other words, when you lay it out, and then when you file the return of layout in the town clerk's office, that affects title in the town.
I have a second question. I don't know who it goes to, but at what point do we actually take liability and responsibility for that road? After he paves it, before he, how does that work?
The town owns it and accepts it as soon as the selectmen vote to lay it out, and then following that, the return of layout, which is basically a plan of the road that you were asking about. When that is recorded in the town clerk's office, the town owns it. It's town road.
All right. Would it be possible to go back to the first slide with the wording on it? The wording states, over existing private right-of-way as a town road. I think somehow it needs to be amended to convey to the voters that we are going to take ownership of that road. And it doesn't say that anywhere within that. Some of us know that under the betterment, this is how the process works, but the voters don't know that the way it's worded. I'm not sure just how to amend it, but perhaps it should say, over existing private right-of-way for which the town will then take ownership of.
The word layout means the town's going to take it over as a town road, so...
People don't know that, the way that's written.
Well, you know, people have to be educated. That's what we're here for. We're educating them.
We have to help them. We have to help them.
You go ahead. You can respond.
I was going to say, we just have to help them know what it is. Right now, it just doesn't express that. Mark, could you help with that wording to express how that we actually will take?
I'm not sure I can help you out. I would say that the language is clear, at least to me. Now, maybe it's not to the average person, but it says the layout, and then as a town road. In other words, we're laying it out as a town road. I suppose you could say the layout, design, construction, and acceptance of Westwood Drive. I mean, maybe that makes it a little more clear, but I think legally it's sufficient the way it is.
Well, legally, we know, I'm sure it is, because you review all our warrant articles before they get here tonight. However, my concern is the general public, when they go to vote, that they know that we're taking on that road forever, and we will be plowing it, sanding it, salting it, taken care of the ditches forever, and so it's not something that they just pay $263,000 for and we're off the hook. Forever we will be maintaining it because we own it. And so perhaps I would amend to say accept, as Mark said, acceptance of.
Well, if you'd like to make a formal amendment, and if we can get a second, we can vote on it. If not,
That's it. My formal amendment is to add the word acceptance of.
so you'd like to put the word acceptance of exactly where?
Where was it? I can't see it from here. Layout.
It says for the layout, design, and the construction of Westwood Drive over the existing private rights-of-way as a town road. You all set? Any further discussion on Article 10? I'll get to you in 1 second.
Sure.
On Article 10. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to Article 11, but before we do that, you'd like to make a motion on Article 9.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we close conversation and discussion of Article 9.
So we'll rephrase that a little bit. You're moving to restrict reconsideration of Article 9. That sound a little
Perfect.
better? Perfect. All right, so she'd like to restrict reconsideration. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor of restricting reconsideration, Article 9, which means we will not go back to it again tonight, please say aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? Unanimously passes. We will move on to Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 for the purpose of developing an asset management program for the town's stormwater collection system that will qualify the town for federal and state funds, such sum to be raised by the issuance of bonds and notes not to exceed $30,000 under and in compliance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, which is RSA 33, as amended, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes to determine the rate of interest thereon, and to take such actions as may be necessary to effect the issuance, negotiation, sale, and delivery of such bonds and notes as shall be in the best interest of the town of Wolfeboro. Additionally, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for and accept grants or other funds that may reduce the amount to be repaid by $30,000 and participate in the State Revolving Fund, SRF, RSA 486:14, established for this purpose, and to allow the Board of Selectmen to expend such monies as may become available from the federal and state governments and pass any necessary vote relating thereto. This project will not result in any increase in the tax rate. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 is 0. This is unanimously recommended by the Selectmen and the Budget Committee, and will require a 3/5 vote in order to pass in March. Is there any discussion regarding Article 11? And I understand that Linda will be addressing this. So, Linda, if you're up.
Thank you. This year's warrant Article 11 is asking the voters to support an asset management plan for the town's stormwater collection system, similar to the asset management plan approved last year for the town's wastewater collection system. The town is in the process of developing asset management plans for the town's facility and infrastructure. An asset management plan states the condition of the assets and its components, evaluates the significance of each component to the functioning of the asset, and a timeline for maintenance, upgrade, and replacement. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Dave Ford.
Thank you. Asset management plan, what is that? And again, sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words. I would tell you that the bond on the left didn't have an asset management plan, and the bond on the right did. Enough said? Okay, let's talk about asset management. Back in 2015, I came up, and the selectmen have been after me since I got here in 2006 to really break things down in all our infrastructure, have a long-term plan. And I think the Budget Committee has been after us, and we started the asset management plan in 2015 with an appropriation of $50,000. Since then, each year we've been doing something, and this year is what we're looking at again is the stormwater for $30,000, and it is a funny program the state is putting on. They have money in their state revolving fund, SRF fund, so they're going to loan us $30,000, and as soon as we complete the project, they forgive it, so we don't have to pay the loan back. So technically, it's a $30,000 grant. Again, so this is a long-term program. It's going to continue working on it, but obviously, again, the grant money is what we want to do. In addition to the grant money in our operation budget, we have $15,000 on the water side and $10,000 on the general government side. So we continue to move forward with buildings and the water system and other infrastructure. The issue, this one specifically, is it's almost the double. One is our infrastructure that we have to understand, maintain, and have a long-term plan to repair, but also it's where it's our mechanism to protect. All our dirty water goes off the road into the lake, and our lakes are our bread and butter. So we're also working with our lake associations and developing BMPs, and who better than the highway department to lead that in providing better stormwater treatment. So we've been working on that, and this project will help us by, again, developing the inventory. So the problem, again, is the runoff, the need to treat it, to mitigate the impacts, and to find out the condition of all our basins and the pipes, and then develop a detailed plan, which we don't have. So this grant is going to allow us to do an inventory. We have approximately 800 catch basins. We have miles of drainage pipes, and we have stormwater treatment systems. Over the years, we have put some in. Some have worked better than others. And now we are pushing hard to put more of them. And we just this past year at Mass Landing, if any of you had the opportunity to go down there, you'll see 3 or 4 different BMPs that we've tried there. So this will again help us develop a long-term plan for the repair and replacement of all our treatment, our collection and treatment systems. And again, this is a help to us adding to protect the lake, which is most important. So we have a proposal from Underwood Engineers, who's helped us before on some of these other projects. It's for $30,000. Again, as we stated, the funding is coming from the state with a loan forgiveness. That's why it's up front. It is actually a bond article, so we're actually having to formally get the bond first for $30,000. Once it's completed, we get the money back. We did it last year in the sewer. It worked very well. We're in the process. In the next selectmen's meeting, I think we're going to have a presentation of the sewer asset management for the sewer system. Again, our schedule is, if it's approved, we'll work on it, start right in the spring, and we'll be done by the end of the year. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Dave? Any discussion regarding Article 11? Seeing none, we will move on to the operating budget. Article 12.
I'd like to make a motion not to reconsider the restricted consideration of Article 10 and 11.
So it's been moved to restrict reconsideration of Articles 10 and 11. Would someone like to second that? All those in favor of restricting reconsideration, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we will not now revisit Articles 9, 10, or 11. Moving on to Article 12. Shall the town raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein totaling $27,340,249. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget should be $26,814,660, which is the same as last year's operating budget, with certain adjustments required by the previous action of the town or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 is $5.04 per thousand of assessed valuation. This is unanimously recommended by the selectmen, recommended by the budget committee on a vote of 7-1. In order for it to pass or fail in March, it will need a majority vote. Luke, you're up. I understand you're going to discuss this one.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. 3 years ago when I ran for selectman, I had no idea what actually went into budget season, but I'll tell you that the board spends a lot of time in directing Mr. Owen, our town manager, to come up with bringing the department's heads in and asking for 0% discretionary budget, and he works with the department heads, and then the Board of Selectmen spends a fair amount of time working through this budget to get it to where it is. Then it goes on to the budget committee, who equally spends more time getting the budget down to where it is. This is a fiscally sound budget, and I believe it's a good budget. We spent a lot of time on it. When you look at the impact, the overall impact, if you're looking at the price of a $100,000 home, it's going to increase. The tax effect will be $23. A $200,000 home will be $46. and a $300,000 home, it's a $69 increase in taxes. Thank you.
Any further discussion? John?
I usually have a presentation. Is that not going to happen this year, or do the folks want to know where the money's going to be spent? I'm not sure.
Well, you're up, John, if you want to.
Do you have that presentation over there? Okay, thanks. First of all, I want to thank you folks for coming out this evening, and I want to excuse Bob Mulholland from attending tonight. I didn't recall it. He had an appointment up to Dartmouth and isn't back yet. So if you could just show him as being excused from this particular meeting. As Luke said, the Selectmen and Town Managers had certain guidelines in 2018, and they had discretionary budget totals limited to a targeted zero increase over the approved 2017 operating budget. There were some exceptions for contractual obligations, legal requirements, and collective bargaining. Discretionary items included the cost of fuel, oil, diesel, and gasoline. When you go down, we get to the increases. These are where a majority of the increases are going to come. The cost of salaries are increased by 3.41%, or $206,925. And that salaries increased due to the voters approving the raises for all the town employees. Benefits as a whole increased by 7%, or $229,205. And based on that total, it's broken down into health insurance, $147,070, dental insurance, $2,812, and the New Hampshire retirement increase was up 4.45%, or $39,095. And the cost for workmen's compensation increased 21.10%, or $23,795. So all these things here that we had no control as the budget committee, the town manager, or the selectmen. These are fixed costs that we have to pay this year. Now we're going to general government. There's an increase of $9,439 in the executive department. Town manager increase of $31,563. Zoning board, we've got a decrease of $1,287. Planning board, an increase of $647. Miscellaneous executive expenses, an increase of $1,500. Town clerk, an increase of $38,860, and that's based on some salary increases, benefits. We've got an election and some new machinery and equipment. Finance is an increase of $37,734. Again, salaries, benefits, and some printing. We go to the assessing. We've got an increase of $2,984. Again, payroll and benefits. Tax collect, an increase of $15,475. Planning board, increase of $5,748. Brewster building, an increase of $2,714. Cemeteries, we've got an increase of $1,492. Technology, a decrease of $1,457. Prior to the meetings, person opposed me asked me if I could break down how much this particular part of our budget, the general government, it is. The general government's total budget is $2,355,128, and it represents 8.61% of the entire town budget. Next, we'll go to public safety and the police. We've got an increase of $49,655. Fire department, we've got an increase of $80,008, again, in salary and benefits and a few other things. Code enforcement, an increase of $7,743. Emergency management, an increase of $14. Public safety building, an increase of $1,336. Communications, an increase of $9,187. The public safety represents 16.94% of the entire town budget, or $4,632,086. Okay, we'll go to highways and streets. DPW administration, an increase of $45,526. Highways and streets, an increase of $25,468. The breakdown: vehicle maintenance $10,000, rentals and leases $2,000, maintenance supplies $12,000, and then the decrease in travels and meetings. Public Works Garage, we have a decrease of $20,650. Public Works Buildings and Grounds, we have an increase of $8,687. The Highways and Streets budget, Public Works represents 7.86% of the entire town budget, or $2,149,442. Sanitation, we've got an increase of $40,080. And sanitation represents 2.97% of the entire town budget, or $811,164. Okay, health and welfare, increase of $30 for the health officer, animal control, an increase of $1,449. An agency increase of $3,239. Welfare, we have a decrease of $9,987. Health and welfare, the total budget is $225,727, and that amount represents 0.83% of the total town budget. Culture recreation, we've got an increase in administration of $36,607, increase of $6,545 in park maintenance. Beaches, a decrease of $854. Abanac, an increase of $2,335. Hockey rink, an increase of $233. Programs, an increase of $2,559. Community center, we have a decrease of $1,176. Library, we have an increase of $20,277. Patriotic purposes, we've got an increase of $8. Living Museum, an increase of $3,870. And if it's culture and recreation, that represents 5.56% of the total town budget for a total of $1,520,117. Conservation resources, the Conservation Commission, we've got a decrease of $57 and an increase of $67 on economic development. And that conservation resource represents total budget of $23,788, or 0.09% of the town budget. Okay, debt service, long-term principal, a decrease of $40,000. Long-term interest, decrease of $32,124. TAN interest, 0. Transfer to the sewer fund, a decrease of $62,012. Capital outlay, an increase of $49,730. Those groups represent $1,780,897, or 6.51% of the total town budget. Here's a summary of the general fund increase. Overall increase in the general fund operating budget is $374,134, or 2.85%. Significant cost centers in the budget are the salaries and wages, $201,476 for an increase of 4.22%. Health insurance, $139,197, 9.71%. Other benefits, $69,980 for 5.70%. Capital expenses, an increase of $49,730 for 63.56%. A net decrease of all other line items of $85,970. So we've got this with a total increase of $374,134. The next slide shows you the increases over the past 9 years, I guess it is. 2009, 8.04%, and go all the way across through 2015, 2016, 2017, and this year it's 4.3%. Okay, sewer enterprise fund, sewer technology, 0. Sewer collections, a decrease of $5,250. Wastewater treatment plant, a decrease of $4,365. Then we've got the decreases in consultants, contract services an increase, electricity is increase, and debt service interest is a decrease. These particular sections of the budget represent 6.29%, or a total of $1,719,472. One enterprises stayed the same. Distribution went up $39,887. Treatment plant went down $8,518. Capital outlay went down $2,500. The one enterprise fund represents its total is $1,804,782, and it represents 6.60% of the entire town budget. Electricity enterprise fund, electric administration increase of $8,095, and you can see the salaries and benefits programs. Purchase costs up $31,434. Electric generation is up $959,113, and the electric department represents $10,037,608, or 36.71% of the entire town budget. Pop Whale and Enterprise Fund got a decrease of $4,844. Capital outlay decrease of $19,808. The Pop Whalen Fund equals a total of $280,038, or 1.02% of the town budget. And we go back into the overall budget increase. General fund, $374,134, 2.85%. Sewer enterprise fund, a decrease of $49,615, or a decrease of 2.80%. Water enterprise fund, increase of $28,869, increase of 1.62%. Electric enterprise fund, $891,142, an increase of 9.74%. Pop Whalen Enterprise Fund, a decrease of $24,652, or minus 8.09%. Subtotal of the enterprise fund is $845,744, an increase of 6.51%. Total general and enterprise fund together, $1,219,878, for a total increase of 4.670%. This kind of shows you where we started out for. The department heads were at $27,634,981. Town manager dropped it down to $27,537,638, and then the Board of Selectmen dropped it down to $27,440,171, and then when we got done with it, we dropped it down to $27,340,249. Estimated tax rate for 2017 was $5.76. Estimated tax rate for 2018 will be $5.99, and that includes all the warrant articles should they all pass. Increase per thousand, general fund portion, 23 cents. Major contributors to rate increase in 2018 was a decrease in fund balance to offset the tax rate, 5 cents, and an increase in the general fund appropriations of 18 cents. Here's the tax effect that Luke spoke about. $100,000 home, $23, $200,000 home, $46, and a $300,000 home, $69. You'll have 2 more new employees working for the town that are going to become full-time. One is in Parks and Rec, and the other one is in the police department, in the support staff, secretary staff. And does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for John or any comments on the budget generally? Yes, please, go up to the microphone. We're watching you on television, so everyone needs to hear you.
I'm Lynn Slocum. I don't have a judgment. I just have a question on the $10,000 decrease in welfare. I just need to have it explained. That's all.
Yeah, we are very supportive as a community of the welfare department, and Amy can probably say something. She just doesn't need the money. The economy is doing well, and she's able to provide the services for less money. So it's not that we didn't want to give her the money. It's just at this point she doesn't really need it, or doesn't project that she'll need it in 2018. Is that a fair assumption? Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Hey, Kathy?
Kathy Eaton, I just am curious about something, going back about 3 or 4 of the slides, where we were seeing that the general fund resulted in about a 2% right there. And I see the electric enterprise fund is 891. That's the big jump in what's causing our tax rate to go up so much. And I'm just curious about what that is. What's causing that $891,000 there?
Well, that's Barry Muccio from the electric department.
Yes, Barry.
That's actually not, has no effect on the tax rate whatsoever. That is an enterprise fund. That is our purchase power agreement. If you recall, 2017 was the first year of that. It had some incremental steps. These are already currently built into our rates, so it has no effect on your electric rate as well. We saw this coming, and so we were able to level fund our rates to compensate for this.
So the actual tax rate impact is really like closer to the 2.85. I mean, I'm confused because that figure seems to be 9.7% of the. So, but it's not really there. That's what you're telling me?
That's overall with all the warrant articles.
Somebody want to address that?
Yeah, because it's down 8% for Pop Whalen is down 8%, but Electric Enterprise is up 9.7. I'm just guessing. If I'm confused, somebody else might be. If I'm the only one, then that's okay.
Do you want to?
The way I read this, it's at the top is the general fund. All the other ones are all enterprise funds. So the two separate things we're looking at there.
And an enterprise fund is a self-contained business, so that does not affect the tax rate. It is the cost of the electricity and your fee for electricity. So that takes care of that part. And Pop Whalen is one, sewers, water, and electricity. We have 4 of them, enterprise funds, little businesses within the bigger business of the government. And each one of those businesses take care of their needs through their self-sufficient through their rates.
Peter could weigh in on that too for you, Kathy.
Yeah, I think my observation is that the tax rate increases are generated through 2 types of items, and the slide in this presentation includes both the operating budget tax increase and I think rest of the warrant, the effects of the other warrant articles. So you have to take whatever you have as far as the operating budget tax rate increase and then increase it by every single warrant article that raises taxes. No, but what you, I have, when I do these, I have to keep the effect of the warrant articles in mind when presenting that to the public, so that's why you see the enterprise funds are, well, whatever it is you have for an appropriation for the enterprise fund, you have as a revenue, it's no effect on the tax rate. What the large increase in the electric budget this year is for appropriations purposes. The state requires us to appropriate money no matter if it's going to affect the rate or not.
Any further discussion, questions regarding Article 12? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 13, which I like because it's very short. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $870,000 for the purpose of upgrading the town roads and drainage systems. The estimated tax rate impact, which gets back to your question, Kathy, a little bit, for 218 is 0.439 per thousand assessed valuation. This is unanimously recommended by the selectmen, recommended by the budget committee on a vote of 5 to 4. And in order for it to pass or fail in March, it'll need a majority vote. And I understand Brad is going to address this. Brad?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. The town has about 53 miles of paved roads and about 14 miles of gravel roads. The road system in Wolfeboro is the one asset that every resident and visitor will use every day. It's also the most visible asset of the town. I think Mr. Ford could attest to that, because if there's ever an issue with the road or something like that, I'm sure that phone is ringing all the time. The Public Works Department has created a long-term plan to address the maintenance and reconstruction of all the town roads. So I urge the voters to support this article, and I'll turn over to Dave Ford for further details.
Thank you, Brad. Yeah, I think you said it pretty succinctly there. Our problem is we have a lot of roads. A lot of them were built with inadequate base, and then we have the traffic and the climate. Pretty clear. Our solution is to have this annual appropriation in which we look at replacing, upgrading the roads, and that includes culvert replacement, a lot of additional drainage in some of the areas that have poor drainage, standing water. Sometimes we do pavement overlays if the road's in pretty good shape. Then the other one is reclaiming. We grind up the existing road, add to it, and then pave over it, and then put a wearing course on it. These are all the different solutions for the different roads. Again, drainage is the most critical thing, and we've been spending a lot more time on drainage over the last 10 years. Unfortunately, not getting as many roads, but the roads we are doing properly are lasting longer. The roads this year, again, slide is Keywaden Road, which is, again, a road we've been trying to get to for many years. We've had different residents come up and complain about that at selectmen's meetings. College Road, which we have done in 3 phases. This would be the 3rd phase, which is closest from Route 28 going out towards Westwood Drive. And then Trotton Track Road is one that's falling apart. We did patch it last year to keep it together, but it needs to be a total rebuild. So all these are rebuilds. Mountain Hill Road is, again, a small, short road, only a little over 500 feet, but it's in terrible shape. It's on a hill, and I'm afraid we're going to lose it, so we got to do something up there. So it's a minor road we're going to do. And the other one that was added is a Railroad Ave extension. If right downtown where we have the boat ramp and the railroad station, there's a section of gravel road as you're heading out towards the back parking lot. That always was in private ownership. Finally, we have acquired the rights by purchasing the railroad station building and working with the Bean Family Trust to lay out that. And when we're going to lay it out, we're going to improve the drainage and then pave that road and do some traffic calming in it to make it safe. So that's also included here. That's a budget of a little over $70,000. We also do an engineering. As Brad said, we've been working on our road surface management system. We partially funded this year, and we're going to finish funding it next year, in which we will develop the long-term plan. So I don't have it yet, but it's in process. And by budget season next year, we should have a long-term plan. Right now, we are going year to year. And we do have a little contingency with this. But again, it's one of the articles that's very supported by the public in the past, and we hope again it gets supported this year. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Suzanne?
Every year, this goes up, this warrant article. And I can remember when it was $250, $350, $450, $550. And I remember supporting an increase because it was low. I also remember some of the rationale that you had was, well, it will take us 20 years to catch up. We can only do so many miles in a year, and this is the amount of money we need. The town's been very generous in increasing that amount. With what you have in your operating budget, $2,149,442, and this, you're close to $3 million overall. The town needs to think, it used to be that this money would be in the budget, but in fairness, it was broken up before you were here as department head. In fairness, the selectmen decided to pull that out and show it to the people as money for a warrant article. But it used to be all part and parcel of the budget. Maybe that has to go back in, I don't know. But anyway, the long and short of it is I'm going to make a motion to reduce the budget, the warrant article, by $270,000, leaving you with $600,000 to disperse as you see fit.
Okay, so you've moved to amend the $870,000 number down to $600,000.
Yes.
Is there a second to that? Okay, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Suzanne?
I see that I think it was two budget committee members voted not to support that. Four. Would the budget committee like to help me out here?
Yeah, I was one of the folks, I'll speak first, that voted against the town road upgrades. It wasn't because I'm against town road upgrades, I'm just against the increase of up to $870,000. One of the things that bothers me is sometimes we pay for things out of our own pocket this year, and they don't get done for a year and a half or 2 years later. And I would rather have that money in my pocket than sitting here in the town's pocket. And I was more in favor of around $800,000 because there's $70,000 to do the engineering or whatever done by the railroad station. And there's a warrant article already in here concerning that. And we know that's not going to get done this year. It's probably, we're looking maybe 3 or 4 years down the road once the railroad station gets, whatever you want to call that building, gets remodeled and the museum gets going. And that's not an urgent thing. It's something we can do in 3 or 4 years when there's finally some game plan for what's going to happen to that building. And I think Suzanne's motion is a good idea, but I think it's not enough money. I think at $800,000 is a fair and reasonable amount, and that's my personal opinion, my thoughts on it.
So we got one motion on the table. We can vote that up or down. If you want to try another number, you can later. But at the moment, we're talking about whether we should reduce it to $600,000.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment about the Railroad Avenue and extension. This railroad extension is going to be done this coming year. Am I correct, Mr. Ford? You're doing it in this year?
And the intent was, if approved, we would start the spring, put the drainage in, get the base costs in. We might hold off on the wearing costs because of the construction of the railroad station, but we want to get it in because it is an inconvenience. The dirt road there is a problem, and we want to get.
And so this is going to happen regardless of what happens to the freight station. This is not contingent upon the freight station being done. It is to deal with that gravel section between the railroad station and the heading to the Glendon Street parking lot. And that's an issue we've had in terms of maintenance, et cetera.
Yep. And we also are going to coordinate whatever that project is, make sure we have the underground utilities in, so we won't have to dig up the road later. So it will be done in a way so that the project that comes later on won't interfere with the work we do this year.
Yeah. And the Board of Selectmen made the decision to add it to the annual road maintenance. I think this year we have like 32 warrant articles, and instead of having another warrant article, we felt we could deal with it all within one warrant article. So that's why it went up this year. We think it's a significant section of road within the greater downtown, and we're going to have some better walkways and crossings at that time, and we think it is a safety issue for pedestrians. So,
any further discussion on the amendment?
I just have one question, Mr. Ford. Mr. Ford, how many projects that have been paid for in the past couple of years by warrant articles aren't completed?
Well, John, that's an open-ended question because we have so many warrant articles. If I do my capital project report, which I think you see on occasions, and I'll be presenting that to the selectmen at the next selectmen's meeting, we'll find that we have numerous projects, but some do get delayed. Normally, the road projects, bulk of it, money gets spent every year. Right now, we are carrying a little contingency that we, on Port Wetland Road, we didn't get to shoulder the gravel shoulders, so we have a little money left over there, and we have a little bit drainage work. So it's not unusual that we don't spend the full amount, but that also gives us a little amount to get going through and to finish up on those projects. So I think on road projects, we're probably do very well. We have a couple that are dragged on. The sidewalk project, we've been doing in pieces. So again, I could go on for a long period of time, but I think that's off the subject. But I think with regards to roads, normally they get done that year. And if there is, it's just maybe the overlay or a small piece of the project gets done the following year. And sometimes we need the money from the following year to supplement the money from the previous year, which was on Port Wetland and Winter Haven.
Some follow-up?
I would withdraw my motion if I could get a number from John that would be more acceptable.
Oh, my thought is 800,000. That's
Fine.
just
Every little
taking
bit
out
helps.
that's just taking out the right for the railroad thing.
I'd amend my motion to reduce the warrant article by $70,000.
Right, so I'll take that as a withdrawal of the 800 and a resubmission of an $800,000 number instead of the 870. So instead of reducing it to 600, you'd like to reduce that number to 800. Is there a second to that? Okay, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion on reducing the amount of the $870,000 number down to 800? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
no.
That wasn't very divisive. So you have some yellow cards. You get all those that are in favor, please hold those up. Okay, you're voting on reducing in Article 13 the $870,000 number down to $800,000. So those in favor, hold up your yellow cards. I'm not going to count them, just put them down. Those that are opposed, I think the opposed prevail.
That's too bad.
Is there any further discussion on Article 13? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 14. Okay, you're trying to restrict reconsideration on Articles 12 and 13? All those in favor of doing that, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we now will not reconsider Articles 9 through 13 this evening. Moving on to Article 14, the reconstruction of the 390 line, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,210,000 from the Electric Enterprise Fund for the purpose of reconstruction of the 390 line, which feeds the town's electric power supply from Tuftonboro to Wolfeboro. Such expenditures will not result in any increase in the tax rate or electric rate. The estimated tax rate impact is therefore zero for the 2018 year. This is unanimously recommended by the Selectmen and the Budget Committee, and will need a majority vote to pass or fail in March. And Linda, you're up on this one.
Yes. Warrant Article 14 is addressing the town's main power line from Tuftonboro. That's the town 390 line. It is 54 years old and in need of replacement. It is usually the line that goes out when we have a major power outage. But I do want to emphasize that the 390 line is, cost is already calculated in your electric rates, and therefore will have no impact to the electric rates or to the tax rate. And with that, I'll turn it over to Barry Muccio.
Thank you, Linda. The 390 line is our sole source of power here in Wolfeboro. It was built, and it was completed in 1964, and it's the original vintage right now. So what you see out there was the original construction that served us well. It will be 54 years old in 2018, and we're starting to see some condition issues. The pole structures, some of the insulators have shown some chips, cracks, as well as the cross arms out there. So it's really due. As well, from the electrical standpoint, some of the ground clearances and thermal ratings are less than adequate for what today's standards require. Some of the terrain's changed a bit out there over the years, as you can imagine. If you recall, we did a warrant article in 2017 for the survey and engineering, which was completed over the summer, and due to that, we have a really solid number of what the budget will be. Some of the details go through and reestablish the full 100-foot right-of-way with some trimming. We have determined there's a much more wetlands out there than we originally anticipated, so we have to go through and put up approximately 7,200 linear feet of silt fence, as well as 2,200 feet of some timber mats to protect the wetlands as we worked out there. All the poles would be replaced with new. They'd be 10 feet taller than they are now. And that kind of gets us out of some of the tree fall zone as well, which helps. All the conductors, cross arms, and insulators will also be replaced. We'd also have to transfer some of the existing attachments to those poles, specifically on Filter Bed Road, where there's some underbuilt circuits. And then also as part of this, we would install a load break switch where our ownership takes over, the demarcation point of ownership from Eversource to us, which happens to be at the RIB site. It would be in that general location of that, where that photo is. That really gives us control, the ability to lock out and tag out that line when we have an issue so that we can jump right on it and work on it. Right now, we're at the mercy of Eversource. We have to wait for them to get out there, open their switches, lock and tag out those items before we can work on it. So it'll certainly help us. As Linda said, this project will have no effect on the tax rate. It has no effect on the electric rate. It's currently built into the existing rate structure, as are all our capital projects. So I'd entertain any questions and appreciate your support.
Any questions for Barry? Any discussion on Article 14? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 15. To see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $90,000 for the purposes of 1, making immediate repairs to the existing town docks, and 2, engineering and permitting required repairs to the existing dock system and retaining walls as per the town docks asset management study performed by Tythe & Bond engineers. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 will be 0.045 cents per $1,000 of valuation. This is unanimously recommended by the Selectmen and Budget Committee and need a majority vote to pass in March. And Dave Senegal, you're up on this one.
This is repairs to the existing dock system we have. Has nothing to do with expansion. Our dock system, as you'll see from what David Ford's going to present, starts at the bridge, comes down the river, around the corner where the Mount docks, where the Millie B goes in and out, or now the museum boat, and also the town docks as they exist today. As David will point out in his presentation, we have some issues from ice pushing, from braces broken underwater, to the concrete wall bulkhead along the walkway. If you've been down there at all, you notice that some of the walkways are moving a little bit. They're not perfectly level like they used to be. And also you'll see from some of the pictures that the concrete work along the river is starting to separate, which means it's dropping down, and I think David can present some pictures and information about that.
Dave?
Thank you. Again, the photographs here, just so you see, so it starts from the bridge. So this is kind of the bulkhead where the Mount Washington comes in, and then the Millie B, and then all the finger docks there. So the problem is the aging docks. They've been there. They were rebuilt in, I guess, around the 1999, 2000, around that time. But they get heavy use. The Mount Washington dock, the seawall, and the finger docks. We have plenty of people who live here, visitors and island residents. And really, it's just a matter of they wear out. It's Mother Nature and Father Time, which is doing the damage. Part of our asset management plan and funding, we look at detailed look and had these inspected by a professional engineer who specializes in waterfront engineering. They went in the water, underwater, took pictures. They give us a detailed report, which is here, and there's immediate repairs that have to get done right away, that have to be done this spring. If not, we're going to have to limit the use of the docks because some of them are safety issues. Then there's also repairs and that doesn't have to be done right away, but they have to be engineered and have to be permitted. So this article is also speaking to the emergency repairs that have to get done this spring, as well as the long-term repairs, getting the engineering, the permits for those, and any engineering we may need to do. And we also need to, again, develop a schedule in the future. Okay, I just said that. Oops, what's going on? Okay, so this is some of the problems. Again, this is where the Mount Washington comes up, and some of these piles are actually broke. This is at the end of the residential docks. You can see with the frost action, some of the stones coming apart. Underneath, it's hard to see this one. Some of the bracing is offset now, the movement. And then here we have a lot of, underneath the water, you can see the bracing is, that has been broken, and we don't have that stability now. So if a boat hits it, there's a danger of getting worse. Again, also in here, this is all false wood. Underneath, we got some issues there. You can get some more movement we're talking about with the concrete separate from where the structure's holding it. And just in general, the concrete being very old, having problems. We've got a detailed inventory of everything. We can't see, but we did look at everything, and we kind of rated it. Does it have to get done right away? Does it have to get done within the first 5 years, or 5 years and on? So we have a rough idea what has to, but now we've got to dig into the details and coordinate the work. Because we don't want to do something the first year that we'd have to take apart 5 years from now. So the work has to be coordinated. And, oops. So that's what we're looking at here. This appropriation is for $90,000, $40,000 for the emergency repairs, and $50,000 would be for the getting into the asset management plan, engineering everything, permitting, and then developing the long-term schedule for that. And again, our schedule for this would be the repairs would be done in the spring, and the engineering permit would be completed over the summer. With that, I take any questions.
Any questions for Dave or any discussion regarding Article 15? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 for the purposes of designing and permitting the expansion of the dockside docks. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 is 0.013 cents per $1,000 of valuation. This is unanimously recommended by the Selectmen, recommended by the Budget Committee on a vote of 5-3, and a majority vote will be required for it to pass or fail in March. And Dave Senegal, you're up again on this one.
If this has to do with the dock expansion, which the Selectmen put a committee together last year, of which we went around the lake and looked at all the different dock systems in all the towns around the lake. From that, we considered what we wanted to do or how much we needed to expand the docks that we have. Currently, the docks are about 120 feet long. We would like to make them 200 feet long. We have been in discussions with the state, DES and Shoreline Protection, both in Concord and a physical visit here. They were all ready to be on board with it. They said if it has to do with the public interest, they are interested in issuing the permits. We also asked them in reference to the width of the docks, because most of their docks today, they only approve they're 6 feet wide, ours are 8 feet wide. They said they would not like to see us make the docks 6 feet. They want to continue them at 8 feet just for safety purposes. So with that, David, I think, has a presentation that you can work with, and this money, again, is for designing and permitting of the expansion of the town docks.
Dave?
Thank you. Again, this picture here just shows, it also is a reorientation of the mast of the Mount Washington from here. It would just push out the new moorings would be here, give it a little bit angle when it's backing out so that we could expand the docks there. Again, the problem, if everyone has been out there in July and August on a busy day, boaters are trying to visit Wolfeboro. The existing docks can accommodate up to 56 boats, and that's a theoretical number. And that's basically looking at the linear foot divided by 25, and that's what I'm using to do a comparison of existing versus the proposed extension. But it is theoretical because you got big boats, you got little boats, you got people who don't know how to park boats, and it all matters. We have, again, a lot of people idling out there. There's frustrations when there's no slips available. Boaters leave without setting foot in Wolfeboro. That's a lost economic development opportunity for us, and I think it's significant. We're seeing it over, again, a 3-month period. We also have another issue with the Mount Washington bottoming out during low lake level. That happened last year, and that's, again, part of the permitting. We're going to need to dredge that, especially when we look at moving the location. So that has to be taken into consideration. The Board of Selectmen did form a dock committee, so they had public input in this, and it wasn't like it was a quick one. They spent all summer looking at the different options, including going out visiting other towns. They looked at, again, what the problems were and the needs were, and we came up with that there definitely is a problem and there is a need. Again, good news, reaching out to the head of DES and giving us pretty much a green light, saying if as long as we have the public support, that they can see the public benefit. We had White Mountain Survey develop a conceptual plan. Again, the existing docks are light and the darker docks are here. And again, in that same thing, we'd have to push the dock out just a little bit for the Mount Washington. Existing right now, we have the 760 linear feet, and that's on both sides. So the new extension would give us 330 feet, and the estimated slips would be 30, almost a 50% increase. Again, that's assuming you have 25 boats and everyone knows how to park the boat, which is an incorrect assumption. But it is a big expansion, and giving us those extra, so it's very significant. And so again, where we're looking at doing now is this money would be used to contract with the engineer to develop these plans for construction and for permitting. And again, our estimates are here. The construction of this is still up in the air until we actually do the design. And that would be pending. That's not for discussion this year. We're just looking at the fact of getting it engineered and permitted. The cost could be substantial, but there's other ways to pay for it. There is a significant boating infrastructure grant. It's a federal grant that has not been given out in the state of New Hampshire only because there's some red tape. So we're hopeful now if we can develop the proposal, we can hopefully get through that red tape, and there's up to $200,000 available with that specific grant. There are some other funds also that we might be able to tap in. And also the selectmen considering creating capital reserve funds for this. And ultimately, if we want to do it right away, there could be a bond, and there's other ways of funding it. But that's what this article is about. And again, I'd be more than happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Dave or any discussion? Dave, you come up to a microphone, Dave. The problem is we can't hear you on the radio or the TV. And we all want to hear you. Thank you, Dave.
My name is David Bentley, and I just have one question about this. Does either Article 15, since we haven't closed out Article 15, or Article 16 address the boat ramp and all of that?
The boat ramp was addressed last year at the town meeting when we appropriated $90,000. That project is under construction right now and will be completed by the springtime. So the boat ramp is going to get widened and fixed, but that's already underway.
Any further questions or discussion? Kathy?
Kathy Eaton, and I am, my husband and I own the Wolfeboro Trolley Company. I am also chairman of the Economic Development Committee, wearing that hat this evening. Just to let you know that the Economic Development Committee voted unanimously in December to support the selectmen in their endeavor here with the town docks, both recognizing the importance of repairing them, looking after the engineering standards for the repairs, and also for the expansion of the docks. The town dock area in Wolfeboro, it's the heart of our town, especially it's our front door. especially during the tourist season. The tourist industry recognized as the foremost industry here we have in Wolfeboro, employing directly approximately 600 to 700 people right on the front lines in hotel management and attractions, and another 600 people in the secondary lines of restaurants and real estate companies and house rentals. We know that that's very important to us, and of course looking after the infrastructure that supports our first economy in the town is very, very important to us. Those of us who've worked around the town docks, and I spend quite a bit of time sitting there on the trolley, watching people circle as they come in the summertime. And every time somebody leaves, as was mentioned earlier, Dave said, every time someone waits and they don't get a slip and they leave, that person in that boat wants to come into town to do something. They want to come into town to spend some money. And whether they come into town to go to dinner, to lunch, to shop, to get an ice cream cone, or they find a house in a window that they want to buy, they want to come to town for that reason. And if they can't find a place to park their boat, they're going to keep going. So I think it's wonderful news that we've got the possibility of some grants that will help us find the money to build these later on down the road, which makes a lot of sense because the lakes are part of our state park system. They belong to all of us in the state of New Hampshire, and they are here for the recreational use of everybody. And that's why the state's going to be behind expanding public docks. We don't charge anybody to come in and use our docks. As well, we shouldn't. It's a parking place. And I think for all of us who see all the cars downtown in the summertime, we would also be very happy if somebody did not come by car, if they came by boat. It saves a parking space downtown as well. Helps the congestion a little bit. And I have to think and remind you that many of our taxpayers are those that help us with all of the projects and the things that we have in Wolfeboro. In the greatest way are those who own waterfront property who pay the most taxes. And all those people on the waterfront, I'm sure, have a boat. Whether they are on the mainland or they are on own property on one of the islands, they have a boat and they like to come to town by boat too. And some of those very people, many of them, are also those that do not necessarily have kids in school, do not necessarily weigh heavily on our other services that we have here in town. So trying to provide a boat slip or a place for them to come by boat and dock is very fair as well. So it's a project that should stay right on the top of the list and really support the selectmen in recognizing that. I would like to also point out that expansion of the town docks was recognized when we did a survey back in 2015 as something desirable that would help businesses and the economy in downtown Wolfeboro, recognized and suggested by several of the 100 business persons that we interviewed. So the selectmen picked up on that information, the Chamber of Commerce picked up on that information, and together they put together a committee that put this forward. So we are just speaking highly in support of that, and as a taxpayer and resident here in Wolfeboro, so do I personally. So I hope the people in town will vote yes on this article and support it, as well as the article regarding the repairs. Thank you.
Suzanne?
Just a question. Will Article 15 repairs mesh and work with Article 16? In other words, the repairs that you're going to do, should you eventually get the expansion, will it work nicely off of that?
Correct. They'll be coordinated. The two projects will be coordinated so that we make sure that as we schedule the repairs, that we coordinate if the town decides to go forward with the expansion, that we don't expand over something that, oh, we just fixed it 2 years ago, we have to replace it. We will make sure it's coordinated so we don't waste any money.
Then a question for the Budget Committee. What was the sticking point on that it got a 5-3 vote? Is it?
If you could speak in the microphone, Bob.
Bob Lohman, I fail to see the dramatic economic impact the expansion of the docks will provide for the town. As we speak, we have more lineal dock space than any other town on the lake. So it seems to me spending the money to expand the docks is not in our best interest from a tax-paying point of view. That's why I voted against this particular expansion engineering project.
Any further discussion on Article 16? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 17, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $150,000 to reconstruct and expand the public restrooms at the Dockside Restaurant Facility to provide year-round American with Disabilities Act ADA accessible public restrooms at the Dockside facility. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 will be 0.076 cents per thousand. It's unanimously recommended by the Selectmen and the Budget Committee. And Linda, you're up on this one.
Yes, warrant Article 17 is addressing the town's needs for restrooms. In 2015, the Economic Development Committee performed a business retention and an expansion survey of over 75 businesses. One of the three most important community factors to be improved were public restrooms. The board established an ad hoc restroom committee which recommended a phased approach to increasing and upgrading town restrooms. Phasing projects over a number of years is one of the methods that the Board of Selectmen and staff use to try to help keep the tax rate from spiking. The first project was a Fossfield building with 3 additional restrooms, which has just been completed. This year's warrant article addresses the need to upgrade and expand the restrooms at the Dockside Restroom Facility. The town Dockside area is used heavily by Wolfeboro summer residents and tourists. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Dave Ford.
Thank you. Here's a picture in the existing docks. If you're not aware, there's a one-seater here, and then behind this there's an entrance in the backside, another one-seater on that side. Again, the problem is the dockside and downside is very attractive. It's a great place. If anyone's from out of town, the first place you're going to stop there. And the people come by car, by buses. We have big bus loads, boats. And basically, we just don't have enough restrooms for facilities to greet these large numbers of people. Right now, there we have a seasonal, and we have there's no heat there. We do bring in porta-johns, but that's, again, for big events, that might be okay, but for a long period of time, that's not okay. It's very disgusting. They get dirty very quickly. So again, we are looking at the heavy use. The existing facility, even though it was redone about 10 years ago, it needs to be redone again because they get beat up pretty bad. The solution, again, the Selectmen formed a committee to look at the problems and needs. They studied different options. We looked at building a separate standalone just to get a couple of units in, and then working with Greg Rourke, who came up with the idea of giving up a little space and working with that building, which we didn't think was possible. He actually went back at a second thought, and then we got an architect involved, and we had Bergeron Technical Services, and we came up with a pretty good alternative. And this is the alternative here, which we would then have a main, this would be the walkway along the river. We'd have one hallway here, a women's room, which would have 1, 2, 3 stalls, a sink, and a changing station for a baby. And on the men's room, we'd have a ADA accessible, another stall, and then a urinal and a sink with a facility for changing babies. So you get everything there. This is what it's going to look like. Again, from the this would be from the riverside. We'd be looking, if you're going on the boat, that's what you look at. This is, what side is this from? This is the same picture. This is before. Okay, this is existing, and this is the proposed. Okay, so it's not changing a whole lot. That's what that's telling us here. It is extending. Right now, we have an area where you can walk in here. That's where the new building is going to be there. A cross section of it. Again, we have some issues, and this project's also going to get coordinated with the dock repairs because we are worried about this wall. That's part of the seawall project, and we are going to do very careful construction here to make sure that we have a stable base for the new bathrooms, and that this wall here is also going to have a permanent repair, so we don't have to worry about that. So those two are going to be coordinated with the repairs to the dock project. Again, the cost, we have the design plans have been completed. The town is acting as a general contractor, and the construction with contingencies is estimated at $150,000. Again, if the vote is approved in March, our plan is to, again, working on a design-build team. We've already got local contractors, the team we've used to do renovations to the restaurant portion we did 2 years ago. the team that we've used to do the force field building, which it's almost complete. At the outside, we're still working on sheetrocking, and we still have some concrete work to do on the outside. So it will be completed this spring, and I'm sure we'll have a big opening on that. But this project, again, we're going to try to beat that one. We had to wait until after the kids got done in the summer. That's why it's a late start. This one we're going to try to get done early, and our hope is that we'll have it available for the summer of 2018. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Dave or any discussion on Article 17? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Gil Dietzer. Are they going to be open 365 days of the year? Are they open in the winter? And are there certain hours during the day that they would be open?
Good question. So the answer is they're going to be insulated and heated so that we can't keep them open during the winter months. But we'll see how the use goes. We maybe will only open them during events if they're not getting used, but they have that option because they will be heated. And then normally they're open in the morning at 7 o'clock and close at 8 o'clock at night. We have a janitor, so we do close them after hours.
Any further questions or discussion?
Reconsiderations of Article 14, 15, 16, and 17.
So it's been moved to restrict reconsideration of Articles 14 through 17. Is there a second to that? Any discussion? All those in favor of restricting reconsideration tonight of 14 through 17, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we will not reconsider Articles 9 through 17 now. Moving on to Article 18, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $500,000 for the purpose of designing and permitting the long-term effluent disposal solution and to make required site work upgrades in accordance with the Hampshire Department of Environmental Services and the town's administrative order by consent, ACO, and also to acquire approximately 5 acres of land in Tuftonboro adjacent to the town's rapid infiltration basin site for the purpose of completing required improvements. Said $500,000 should be transferred from the Sewer Enterprise Fund. Such expenditures will not result in any increase in the tax rate. The estimated tax rate for 2018 is 0, unanimously recommended by the Selectmen and Budget Committee. I understand that, Brad, you'll be addressing this one. So you're up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. You said this warrant article is for designing and permitting the final solution and performing the required improvements to the RIB site in accordance with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services and the town's administrative order. The funding for this project will come from the funds that the town was awarded in the lawsuit and will not result in any tax increase at all. I urge the vote to support this article, and I'll turn over to Dave Ford for further details.
Dave, you're up.
Thank you, Brad. This is an aerial photograph of the top of the hill, and these are basins 1, 2, and 3, basins 4 and 5. The power line runs along through here, and the problems we're having are really downslope of this. And again, for people who are unaware of this, this is a long project. It started back in 2005 with an administrative order, the state requiring us to solve our effluent disposal problem. We thought we had the solution with the engineers. In 2006, we appropriated over $7.1 million, and we went to construction right away. In 2009, we had a problem. We worked with the engineer for 3 years. They wouldn't take ownership of it. We went to a lawsuit in 2012. In the end, we did win the lawsuit, and we did get our money, $7.5 million, less legal fees. And the state, at that time, we went and negotiated this new administrative order. And under this new order, we are to come with a long-term plan that will last us 50 years. And what we're also part of that administrative order is also requiring us to do repairs in the sewer system, reducing infiltration getting in, because it gets in, we have to pump it, we have to treat it, and we have to get rid of it. So it kind of works hand in hand. So we have negotiated that AOC. We've studied the alternatives. We've done some pilot testing. And the status now, we've completed all 9 requirements of the original administrative order. The engineered natural solution system that went in this summer and is running still now has been successful, and a report was issued in the end of December. I have been in communications with the DES, and they've accepted our concept and the plan going forward. What we are going to be looking at, again, this is a bigger picture. So before we were talking about the top of the hill, that's where the basins are. Now we have a slope, and then down in here, we had nice soil, a lot of sand up here. Down here, we had wetland soil. So we went great into the ground. We had 60 feet of unsaturated sand. So it's getting all the treatment we're looking for. But then when it got to the toe of the slope, it hit the wetland soils. Instead of it staying in the soils and getting into the brook, and this is 19 Mile Brook right down here, the soil is breaking out, and when it breaks out, it creates sinkholes, there's water that's creating erosion, and that's really our violation. The water itself is getting plenty treated, so what we need to do is get the water back in the ground. So we've devised a way. We had a temporary collection system in the middle, and we took it to this pilot, and we put it into the river. We collected a kind of this engineered natural solution system was installed at a couple $100,000, and then it goes underneath the wetlands and comes back up and discharges right into the middle of the brook. So when you go there and look at it, you would never know that there's anything there. And that becomes a natural solution. It's in the ground. So we proved that works. Now we've got to prove how do we collect the water that's breaking out all along these areas here. And the engineers had the solution, but they wouldn't give me the 100% definition. So if it's not 100%, I'm not going to spend $3 million. So this year we're going to prove out the collection. So with this intercepted trench cutoff, we're going to go ahead and do a pilot, and we're working on that right now. And this funding is going to help us do that. So once we know the solution works, then we can engineer the rest of the site and be 100% confident that we have the final solution. Along with that, we also have to we know down in here, we're going to install 4 more of these ENS systems along the brook. We have to get those permitted and engineered, so that's part of this work also. Okay, I think I've talked all this. So we're looking at the full-scale intercepted cutoff trench, design and permit the wetlands, and then based on this data at the end of the year, we'll hopefully develop construction drawings. The funding, again, here, we've already appropriated in 2015 $700,000, in 2017 $500,000, and so when we had originally $5.3 million budget, we've spent $1.2 million. We've earned $100,000 due to our treasurer investing wisely on that, and so that's made some money for us. So our balance is $4.2 million in that, and what we're looking at doing, here is the 4-year plan in which we plan to spend $3.7 million to get the long-term solution, but cautiously, this year, we're still looking at doing this pilot, which is about $150,000, as well as the engineering to do the design and permitting, and some money for some additional studies. Also, we are negotiating, one of the things I should go back and point out, some of the water came out, the town line runs right along parallel with the access road here. So this area here is actually in the town of Tufton, but it's on land we don't own. It's owned by the Whitten Family Trust, and we're in negotiations with them right now, hopefully to acquire that parcel so we can take care of it. We've already told them they know we're going to be responsible for it, and part of the long-term solution is for us to take ownership of that, so we do have to compensate them for that. So we're working on that also right now. So that's the total project, and this is just indicating that we have $3.7 million for the RAB, we have money for the sewer, and we still have contingency, and we still have a balance left over. Hopefully, if everything goes well, those balances go to other wastewater projects, whether the sewer system or the treatment plant. But we don't want to get too excited about this yet, because we've got to prove out, and that's what this next year is important for, that we prove out the intercepted trench works. And with that, I'd be more than happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Dave? Suzanne?
You partially answered the question. You are negotiating with Tufton Borough for that.
No, the Whitten Family Trust.
With what?
The people who own the property are the Whitten Family Trust.
And where will the money for that land come from?
From this budget we're showing here.
And do you have enough left in that fund to pay for that land?
Well, again, since we haven't named the price yet, and we're kind of in residential, we're in real estate, it's kind of confidential what the numbers are now. So, but the answer is yes, but I can't give you any details.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion on Article 18? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 19. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 from the Sewer Enterprise Fund for the purpose of designing and permitting upgrades to the sewer collection system to reduce infiltration. The activities will be paid for from a legal settlement, will not result in any increase in the tax rate. This is unanimously recommended by the Selectmen and the Budget Committee. And Luke, you're up on this one.
So this article is for the design and permitting. Obviously, in the course of Mr. Ford's tenure, we've reduced the amount of, water infiltrating the system and sewer that's coming in that we're treating that we didn't send out in water. So this is an ongoing effort that Mr. Ford's been doing since he started this job here, and this is a continuation of it. And I'll hand it over to Mr. Ford at this point.
Okay, and I'm talking kind of fast, and if anyone who's really interested in the engineering and wants to talk about it, I'll be more than happy, because I can talk hours on either of these subjects or anything we talk about tonight. My door is always open, or email if you have questions or someone's watching on TV has an inquiry. But I'm going to speak fast, but if you do have questions, please interrupt. Again, the problem is excessive groundwater. It gets in there through the cracks in the pipes, in sewer manholes, and also private sources of inflow and infiltration. That means that someone has a sump pump and they're kicking it and it ties back into the sewer system. That's illegal and that's a problem. This creates sewer overflows, although we haven't had a sewer overflow since 2007. That was the last one because we've been kind of maintaining our system better. This also creates additional costs for pumping and treating. And again, the problem with our disposal system, we have to get rid of it. So by cutting it here, we're saving money and we don't have to worry about getting rid of it. This is just a kind of a standard diagram. We're talking about, again, the sewer main lines here can have cracks in them, the sewer manholes can have cracks in them, and then the private lines can have cracks in them. And again, our system was originally put in the 1940s. A lot of the pipes are reaching their end of their useful life. We have developed an asset management plan, and we are looking at the long-term repair and replacement of that. But on sewers, it's better to do point repairs, because maybe 90% of the pipes is okay, but you have one place where there's a joint or a crack, so that we can do point repairs. And that's what we're looking at. Again, we'll look at the past work. In 2006, we spent $612,000. We did main line replacement and slip lining. In 2008, again, we had some additional projects. In 2013, now, that's the last one we're working on now. That's including the Center Street. So we had some work on Center Street, but it's being coordinated with that big road project and the last of the money. So that's, again, what John was talking about earlier about projects that drag on. So still we have a 2013 money we appropriated. It's just going to get spent this year here, but that's because we need to coordinate the projects. The consent order was very specific, saying we needed to go ahead and do this additional studies, and we have done that. And this, again, in 2018, we're looking again at the cost-effective ones. And this just kind of generally shows you, back in 2006, excuse me, when we had on the sewer system, moratorium. Right. So the state actually said, you can't connect anymore because we had too much coming in. We had 56 inches of precipitation and 156 million gallons of wastewater for the whole year. That's kind of a benchmark. In a couple of years earlier than that, we also had very high flows. Each year, depending on the amount of precipitation, really depends on how much sewage we see. But the impact is now, even at, let's say we pick a year where we had 44, we had 121, now we're at 46, we're 112, and we're getting down. Last year, we're at 87 million gallons with 40 inches of rain. So it was a dry year, so you can't get too excited about that. Although in 2016, we did temporary repairs down at Dockside. Those repairs let loose, and I think that created the higher flows in addition with the rainfall that we see in 2017. We finished those repairs this fall, and that's going to be hopefully a great way to, again, reducing that. So this is, again, it's just good business. We're looking at $50,000 for engineering to get those projects lined up, and then next year we'll come with money for construction. Again, both of these projects are coming from the proceeds from the lawsuit, so it's not affecting the tax rate. And again, I think it's a good business. So I'll take any questions if anyone has any questions on the sewer.
Any questions for Dave or any discussion on Article 19? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 20, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $175,000 from the Water Enterprise Fund for the purpose of upgrading control panels and computers at the water treatment plant. These activities will not result in any increase in the tax rate, unanimously recommended by the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee. And Dave, you're up on this one.
And this is the case, if it's broken, fix it. But actually it isn't broken. But the system is electrical panels, and like a lot of electrical things, it becomes obsolete over a period of time. So preventative replacement is good, and also there are new devices that save money. And as the moderator mentioned, this doesn't cost anything. The star of the David Ford show will now talk about it.
Thank you, Dave. Again, now we're switching over to the water side. We have two articles on water. Again, we did a asset management plan on a water treatment facility, so we did look at 100 years out. And again, our facility, if anyone wants to come see it, I'm very proud of it. It's a beautiful building. It is 21 years old, but it looks almost brand new. That's the good news. Unfortunately, we identified some panels in there that are outdated. After 20 years, electronics don't last as long as the walls do and as pipes do. So they're still running, but we're having a hard time finding replacement parts. And we're concerned if we do lose the automatic controls, then we'll have to have an operator there 24 hours a day. Because we have a computer system that monitors it 24 hours a day, if there's a problem, it sends an alarm out and the operator then responds. This is, again, what we're talking about is these PLCs. These, all these electronics are which control the building. We have different panels for different pieces of equipment. Again, we've worked with the engineer on the required upgrades. The operators are also working with the engineers, making sure we're hand in hand. We like doing design build because we can do a lot of the work ourselves, and we work directly with contractors. So instead of spending a lot of money on engineering, we actually kind of pre-select, pre-qualify the contractors we're working with, and instead of them worrying about, we have them work with us during the design so we don't have any changes when we get to construction. Our estimate is $175,000. And again, this is coming from the unrestricted fund balance from the water department. So there's no rate increases needed for that. And with that, I'll take any questions on the water treatment plant upgrades.
Any questions for Dave or any discussion on Article 20? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 21. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $260,000 from the Water Enterprise Fund for the purpose of replacing the existing water line in Pine Street. These activities will not result in any increase in the tax rate, unanimously recommended by the Selectmen and the Budget Committee. And Brad, you're up on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This project is necessary to replace about 820 feet of a 4-inch cast iron pipe that was installed back in the 1890s. This project will also be coordinated with a Center Street reconstruction project, and as the Moderator said, there will be no increase in the tax rate. I urge the voters to support this article, and I'll turn over to Dave Ford for further details.
Thank you, Brad. Yeah, that's right, 1890s. We still have over 2 miles of pipe that was installed in the 1890s. It makes you think. We're drinking water in the 1890s. Well, they know how to do things back then. Certain things, now we have things 20 years old, we got to replace them. That's frustrating. But we are, this again, part of our asset management plan was to look at all the ages of the pipe, and this pipe does have problems. When we do our flushing, which we have to do twice a year, or if there's any upset in the system, it can release red water, and we get complaints frequently during those times. Now, Pine Street Road reconstruction was a project that we had brought up a few years ago, but it's been delayed because we wanted to get Center Street project done first, and then Center Street got delayed to do Middleton Road, so it's kind of a mess. But now we are in Center Street. That's going to get completed hopefully at the end of next year, and what we're trying to do is get a jump on doing the water main first and separating it from the road construction project. And again, we're looking at an 8-inch ductile iron cement line will go in, and then that'll connect with what we have going off the rest of Crescent Lake Avenue, which is a cast iron cement line cast iron pipe, which is good for another 50 years. So right now, we want to coordinate with the Center Street project, and our hope is that we could start it in the fall after the major disruption gets done, and try to get that completed. And then we would come back in the following years with the road reconstruction for Pine Street under a separate future warrants. Right now, our estimate is $260,000. That includes the engineering and contingencies, and it's going to be funded by the unrestricted fund balance. And with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dave or any discussion on Article 21? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 22, the Bay Street side. It's been moved to restrict reconsideration Articles 18 through 21. Is there a second? All those in favor of restricting reconsideration, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we will not reconsider Articles 9 through 21 now. Thank you, Suzanne. So Article 22, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $45,000 for the purpose of designing and permitting a sidewalk along Bay Street. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 is 0.023 cents per thousand. Unanimously recommended by the Selectmen, recommended by the Budget Committee, and a vote of 5-3. And Linda, you're up on this one.
Yes, this warrant article is seeking funds to design and permit a sidewalk on Bay Street to address the needs for a safe pedestrian walkway to the center of downtown. Since about the 1980s, the town has been talking about how to connect the center of downtown with the businesses on Mill Street, Varney Road, and Bay Street. Around 1980, the Russell Chase Bridge Falls path along Back Bay was completed. The Planning Board and the Board of Selectmen have supported the idea of a walkable community. The 2007 Master Plan, Greater Downtown Chapter, Objective 3, make the downtown more user-friendly. One of the plan's action was, and I quote, to expand and maintain the network of sidewalks, for example, along Bay Street, end quote. Around 2007, the town replaced the culvert bridge on Bay Street with a bridge wide enough for a sidewalk. And with that, I will turn it over to Dave Ford.
And with one interruption, I misread. The Budget Committee did not recommend this. I said they recommended 5-3. They didn't recommend it 5-3. Just want to clarify that. Dave, you're up.
Thank you. This is not the greatest map, but again, this is, again, Back Bay, Front Bay, whatever your preference is. Vonnie Road down here, so Mill Street, and then, so Bay Street starts with the bridge we talked about here, which was done a few years ago, widened. Again, we have a residential subdivision. We have businesses along here. Up Bay Street, the, help me out here.
Taylor Community.
Home, thank you. And then we have the Front Bay Park, which is in this area here, linking to Elm Street, Route 109A. So that's the limit of the project. Again, the problem is really pedestrian safety. We have many people who like to walk in town, and that makes a nice loop around the Back Bay. Many people are using Bay Street right now. They take their chances and they're walking the road. And it may be the residents or people who are just going for exercise. We do have a problem. It is a narrow right-of-way, and we have utility poles that are on one side of the road and on the other side of the road, and we have structures. So it's not an easy one. If it was easy, it probably would have been done now. In fact, when we looked at overlaying the road about 7 years ago, we said, "Oh, can we do it?" I said, "Not with the money we have here. This is a project upon itself." So the solution is we really need to do a good survey of the right-of-way, find out everything there and beyond. Then we're going to need to work. We get those base plans. We're going to need to work with all the people there because we're going to have some give and take and get easements and to look at what the best place to put that sidewalk would be. The cost, we're looking at the engineering, $25,000, and the survey, because it's actually, it's over a couple thousand feet, so it's a lot of area that has to be surveyed and taken into consideration. And then the construction, again, it's a big ticket item, but we're not saying, we're working, if we get the plans done and we can find out maybe there'll be some funding that you never know, or transportation enhancement monies, or we can look at other ways of funding, but the key is to get it designed and get the easements figured out and make sure we can do it. And then we down the line, we look at funding it. And I think that's all I have for Bay Street sidewalk, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
We also have the boat museum coming there.
Dave, are you...
You also have the New Hampshire Boat Museum. It's going to be building there. They're raising funds, and that will attract people.
Right in this area here. So, yeah, again, another expansion of Boat Museum, which is going to be another big draw.
Plus Mike Hodder's park that it's the town owns alongside, and it's
right, that's the front
people
bay
should
park.
visit that.
Bruce?
Thank you. I'm Bruce Turkelson. I live in the Taylor community. And Bay Street's a narrow road, and especially in the summertime, the locals know that you run out to 109A and then you loop back through on Bay Street and then back into town in order to get through town. The average speed probably on Bay Street on any day, as narrow as that is probably 40 to 50 miles an hour. There's going to be a fatality with walkers on Bay Street before this is all over. I don't know why anyone would be opposed to this. Thank you.
Any further discussion or comments? Kathy?
Yes, Kathy Eaton again. And this project has been a goal. It has been in the infrastructure planning and designs and thinking for Wolfeboro, as Linda said, since the 1980s, and she gave all the examples of the steps that we've taken there. Getting this design and engineering part done is just one more in the step towards the completion of that. As Dave said, there may possibly be sidewalks are good. They're good for recreation. They're good for health for lots of reasons. And finding the money for this may take a few years. We may have to do it in stages, but it's very important that we move forward, and especially at this time where we are watching the development of businesses in that area. The new Maker's Place, which is going in where Wolfeboro Power is, again is going to be in what they call an incubator and a shared space for growing businesses and new businesses and startup businesses in town. The Boat Museum is putting a $5 million facility over there that's going to be a draw for bus tours. They'll have the facilities to take the buses, maybe combined with other economic opportunities for us. Over the past few years, we went down, members of the Economic Development Committee went down and counted the businesses that are there right now. We have 28 businesses on Bay Street. That's not Mill Street, that's Bay Street. 28 businesses over there. The new food co-op is over there. There's a new coffee roasting place coming up. The trolley picks up people going back and forth to Wolf Trap, has done that for many years. It may be a nice walk over, but it's a long walk back, and especially on a hot day. But the sidewalks, so they're walking in the street, whatever, and it's not safe. The sidewalks over there, we have this wonderful park that Dave Bowers just mentioned that was specifically built for people who have special needs, to be not just ADA compliant, but to have special opportunities for people who have different kinds of disabilities, but we don't have a sidewalk to get there. So this is an important part of the recreational and economic infrastructure for this community, and very important that we move forward with this engineering phase and then look forward to how we're going to find the means to do it. Thank you, and I urge you again to vote for this warrant article. Thank you.
John.
Good evening. My name is John Sims. I'm on the board of Eastern Lakes Region Housing Coalition, which is at Harriman Hill, which is across 109A from the head of Bay Street. I'm all in favor of a sidewalk on Bay Street, but the challenge is when you get to the end, the 109A end, how do you get across 109A to get to Harriman Hill or the other businesses that are along that stretch? That is a very difficult pedestrian intersection. And I think in this study, if you would give some thought to how do you go from the end of Bay Street across 109A, it would enhance the utility of this whole project. The other side of that is when you get to the end, if you want to walk down towards Center Street, the sidewalk in that section of 109A is very rough. So if you could include those two aspects, I think that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments, discussion? Suzanne.
I recall, I think it was in 2007 when the bridge discussion was going on. Some of the businesses down in that area balked at this idea. They did not want it. And I know some of the businesses have changed hands, but has the town talked to any of the people along the route that may be affected to get a sense of how they feel about it?
I have not gone public, and I've just reached out to the people who've come to me to discuss it with regards to the Pathways Committee, the Economic Development Committee. We've had discussions at the Selectmen's meeting, but I don't recall us reaching out to anybody individually asking the question, so I have not done that. But again, that would be part of this. Obviously, we're going to have some detailed questions, discussions with property owners because of the narrow right-of-way.
It seems as though that it may have been prudent to do that because some of their frontage will be affected. I guess I would then ask the Budget Committee if they would give us a little bit of information as to why they were not in favor of it.
John?
I voted in favor of it. I know.
Bob?
Does that reach me?
You have to stretch the cord of your neck.
Yes, this project was indicated to be a desirable project, not necessary, not urgent, but just desirable. Dave Ford gave the CIP committee a conservative estimate that the project would cost about $400,000, and it is scheduled on the CIP spreadsheet to be bonded. We have a lot of things we need to do over the next 5 years that will accrue about $10 million in bonding, and this committee felt that this was not a prudent expenditure of town funds. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 23. This is the first of 7 reserve funds. They will all be similar in nature, although they're different as to each category. Article 23 is the Dockside Docks Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to establish a Dockside Docks Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of repairing and improving the Dockside Docks facilities, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be deposited in said capital reserve fund to be under the custody and control of the trustees of the trust funds. The selectmen are designated as agents to expend the funds in this capital reserve fund. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 is 0.05 cents per thousand, unanimously recommended by the selectmen, recommended by the budget committee on a vote of 6-2. And Dave Senegal, you're up on this one.
Yeah, this is a capital reserve fund, for as was explained earlier, about expansion of the town docks. We have, over the years, put capital reserve funds together to help when it comes time to do a project that we have the funding in hand. This is one of the ways we've tried to do it, to eliminate some of the bonding issues that we have had and that you've heard about in the past. So I would recommend that this article be passed. And David, you want to
Sure.
give us a little more?
Yeah, well, not too much more to say, but we talked about the asset management plan study for the dockside, the inventory and assessment. That's the problem. We know we have repairs and replacements that's got to get done. Article 15 is addressing the engineering and the permitting for the emergency repairs and looking at the long-term repairs. Other repairs are estimated at $420,000. We won't know for sure until we do the detailed engineering and get actual construction cost numbers. That's a lot of money. We also need to dredge, and that's again part of the permitting is to get the dredging and figure out what that's going to cost. The question is, how do we fund it without spiking the tax rate? Da-da-da-da. We create a capital reserve fund. So that's the plan here, and we're saying is we're developing the plans on Article 15 and the construction cost estimates. This here will be the first savings account specifically for the dockside area. We also need to coordinate it with the other projects. And if we have dockside restrooms, as that gets approved, that's going to go early in 2018. Parking lot rehabilitation, that project, we have a cap reserve account. We know we need to fix it. We're going to wait and put that one at the end because we're going to have to stage the other projects off the parking lot. We're going to try to make it last for a few more years. And then the possible dock expansion. We're going to determine, do the voters want to go forward with that? If so, we need to put that in the plan. And then we develop our schedule, which needs to be determined upon the votes that come forward. With that, I'd be more than happy to take any questions.
Any discussion on Article 23? Any questions on Article 23? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 24, which is the Dockside Parking Lot Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be deposited in the existing Dockside Parking Lot Capital Reserve Fund, which is under the custody of the trustees of the trust funds. The selectmen have been designated as agents to expend the funds in this capital reserve fund. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 is 0.025 cents per thousand of assessed valuations, unanimously recommended by the selectmen and the budget committee. And Linda, you're up on this one.
Yes, this warrant Article 24 is asking the voters to add $50,000 to the existing dockside parking lot capital reserve. I believe a capital reserve fund is one of the best ways to spread the cost of smaller capital projects or costly vehicle purchases over a number of years. A capital reserve fund is just like a savings account and is one of the ways to lessen the need to bond this project, and I'm sure Dave Ford will quickly go over this.
Quickly, that's the key. Again, the problem, the parking lot has problems, yes. Yearly maintenance, we're doing patching, and we have done sewer repairs. That was a major one we finished this fall. The boat ramp is under construction now. That'll be completed by springtime. On the parking lot, we did appropriate $50,000 in 2015, and we did engineering on that. We had some stakeholder meetings. We looked at doing some more pedestrian-orientated improvements, but I think the feedback we got is, come on, we got to maximize parking. We got plenty of trees, and so that's been scaled down. The estimate is between $300,000 and $450,000, depending on these the improvements in stormwater treatment. The baseline would be $300,000. That's in 2015 dollars. The project has been delayed, though, because of these other needs. Again, the bathrooms, the ramp, and then the docks. The initial cap reserve fund was set up in 2016, and it was funded with $100,000. That has been earning interest, so we do have some more money than that in there now. And then this year, what we're proposing is add 50,000 to that, and 50,000 for the next couple of years, so that when it gets ready, in 3 years from now, we'll be able to pay for it cash without bonding it. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions or discussion on Article 24? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 25, which is the Fire Trucks and Apparatus Replacement Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $186,000 to be added to the existing Fire Trucks and Apparatus Replacement Capital Reserve Fund to be under the custody of the trustees of the trust funds. The selectmen have been designated agents to expend this capital reserve fund. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 is 0.094 cents per thousand. It's unanimously recommended by the Budget Committee and the selectmen. And Dave Bowers, you're up on this one.
Linda said it very well about the reserve fund, but if next time we need a hook and ladder or a pumper, rather than saying, okay, we have $500,000 or $400,000, by paying year by year into a reserve fund, we don't have to ask the taxpayers for that. This is an article I don't think David Ford knows anything about, so I'll call on Chief Pinio.
Good evening, James Pinio, Fire Chief. This program, if you recall last year, it got reduced to $122,000 because of the change in our apparatus which we purchased. We're back up this year. The savings was a one-time deal, so we're back up to the 186, which is the normal appropriation. The specifics of this program are assigned to Deputy Chief Zadi, so I'll hand that off to him. If there's any general questions regarding the 2018 project, I can answer those.
I'm vertically challenged here. Thank you, Tom Zadi, Deputy Fire Chief. And in keeping with Director Ford's mandate to keep it brief, we'll try to keep it brief. Essentially, what we've been able to do for the past 13 years is come to you each year with a set figure, essentially, that's allowed us to not only maintain, but frankly improve our rolling stock, if you will. I hesitate to say fire trucks because we also are able to purchase, for example, our breathing apparatus that we use on a routine basis. We've been able to stick with generally the manufacturer's recommendations in terms of life expectancies and so forth, and replace the vehicles before the maintenance expenses get to the point where it's just not cost effective to do it anymore. Again, we've been able to do this for about 13 years, and at the same time it's allowed us, as the Chief mentioned, the flexibility to revisit the program each year and change the apparatus, the equipment, based on a reevaluation of our needs. As you can imagine, in that time frame, technology's changed, apparatus has changed, lots of things have changed, and we've been able to keep up with innovations in fire service equipment and so forth. So without much further ado, this is our request, and we hope you support it. We will certainly answer any specific questions you might have, and we, again, extend an invitation to anybody at any point to come on up to the fire station. Obviously, we're there 24/7, 365. If you have some specific questions or things you'd like to see, please contact the chief or myself, and we'd be happy to show you around. And sometimes it's a little bit, drives it home a little bit to actually see the equipment we're talking about. With that, we'll entertain any questions anyone might have.
Any questions for the Chief, Deputy Chief, or any discussion regarding Article 25? Seeing none, we will move on to Article 26, which is the Public Works Vehicles and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $170,000 to be added to the existing Public Works Vehicles and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund to be under the custody of the trustees of trust funds. The Board of Selectmen has been designated as agent to expend this capital reserve fund. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 is 0.086 cents per thousand, unanimously recommended by the Selectmen as well as the Budget Committee. And Brad Harriman, you're up on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So, you know, we are getting there, people, so we're trying to gain on this. So this is very similar to the last one you just heard from the fire department here. This is an annual request for funding for the replacement schedule of over $3 million worth of vehicles and equipment for the Public Works Department without creating spikes in the tax rate. So I urge voters to support this article, and I'll turn over to Dave Ford for further details.
I think understanding the cap reserve fund is, again, the preferred go-to method for the Board of Selectmen, which is great. I think it's good for the town and our finances. Like we said, we're trying to fund it without spiking the tax rate. We have over $3 million covered by this cap reserve account. It was set up many years ago. John Burt was one of us responsible for it, probably very good. It's come in so handy over the last few years because the money being there, you never know when things are going to happen. Just recently, we had a terrible accident. One of our drivers, one of our highway workers, was hit when he was working on the side of Beach Pond Road. The truck was totaled. Wes Smallage, as you all know, was hit seriously. The good news is he's doing very well. His rehab's going well, and we expect him to make a full recovery. And also, we want to thank the public for everything, all the support they show for him and his family under that accident. But a side result was we had a Dodge pickup truck that was only 4 years old, but it was totaled. And the replacement value was $22,000, and to try to buy a used truck for $22,000, we couldn't find much. But because we're a municipality, we get great discounts on new trucks, so we could get a new truck for $28,000. So for that extra money, and we had it, at the selectmen, we had a selectmen's meeting, and we got the additional money, and we were able to replace that truck with a brand new truck and extend the life. So that's with the very nice having these capital reserves, because you never know. We have a plan, but you got to be flexible because you never know how things can change. This year, we're looking at replacing HD7 and a six-wheel dump truck, and HD27, our leaf vac, which keeps breaking down, which we got behind schedule on picking up our leaves this year because of the breakdown. So that does need to get replaced. Again, this year we're looking at $170,000. We have a long-term plan that goes out over 15 years, and each year we know how much we're going to spend, how much we're taking in, and it's similar each year, different vehicles, but the concept's there, and we're more than happy to answer any questions regarding the Public Works vehicles.
Any questions for Dave? Any discussion? Article 26.
Hi, I'm Seamus O'Scally. I don't really have a question for Dave. I'm curious, how are the capital reserve funds invested?
Who'd like to answer that question? Peter.
Yeah, all the funds, as they're appropriated once a year, they're transferred over to the trustees of trust funds. And my understanding is the trustees of trust funds have a professional money manager that looks after the investments in the trust. When we spend money upon the authorization of the Board of Selectmen, send a request over to the trustees who approve it, withdraw it, and send it to us.
So you don't know what kind of assets they're invested in then?
No, I don't personally know what kind of assets. That information is readily available.
All right, I guess we'll have to move on with that. Is there any other discussion or questions? Dave?
We should probably say we don't invest in short selling or speculative stocks or whatever. It's very, very conservative, like in money market funds and things like that.
Any further questions or discussion on Article 26? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 27. It's been moved to restrict reconsideration of Articles 22 through 26. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor of restricting reconsideration from Articles 22 to 26, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we will not revisit 9 through 26 this evening. Moving on to Article 27, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $16,750 to be added to the existing Abenaki Ski Area Capital Reserve Fund under the custody of the trustees of trust funds. The Board of Selectmen has been designated as agent to expend these funds. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 is 0.008 cents per thousand. Unanimously recommended by the Board of Selectmen. The Budget Committee approved it on a vote of 7-1. And Dave Senegal, you're up on this.
Yeah, as I said earlier, capital reserve funds that we set up these accounts so that we have funds when a piece of equipment needs to be replaced. With that, I'll turn it over to Christine.
Hi, Christine Collins. I'm the Recreation Director. This fund was set up a few years ago, and Abenaki is in its 82nd season, so we're pretty proud of that. And we use this fund to help us with bigger purchases. For instance, in 2018, our groomer is up for replacement, so we usually use a trade with the money that we have in the account to kind of offset that. So we have outlined basically when things are due to be replaced, and that changes based on if we can still get some value out of that equipment before we replace it. So if you have not been to Abenaki, I suggest you come visit the gem we have in Wolfeboro, because it's pretty amazing. And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions regarding Article 27? Any discussion? I think we're all set. Thank you. Moving along to Article 28, to see if the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $125,000 to be added to the existing wastewater treatment plant capital reserve fund to be under the custody of the trustees of trust funds. The Board of Selectmen has been designated agents to expend this capital reserve fund. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 is .063 cents per thousand. Unanimously recommended by the Budget Committee as well as the Selectmen. And Brad Harriman, you're up on this.
Thank you. This is the fifth year of an 8-year plan to complete $1 million worth of work that was identified at the wastewater treatment plant. I'm going to skip over the explanation about the capital reserve and urge you voters to support this and turn over to Dave Ford.
Thank you, Brad. Again, this is ongoing. Back when I first got here in 2006, we were not only looking at an $8 million project for effluent disposal, we also had a $12 million project to replace the wastewater treatment plant. Engineers believed that the technology was outdated and that the building was old, was built in the 70s, and it needed a lot of work. But through a lot of hard work and working with our operators, our contract operators, Woodward and Curran, we were able to make this 40-year-old plant do pretty good. We were actually, in 2016, we won the wastewater plant of the year because of the quality of our wastewater effluent. We did some process upgrades in 2008 and 2010, and then in 2012. But again, a lot of the base equipment is still old, and the building itself is old. But we are working like good Yankees with duct tape and baling wire and keeping it together. We developed this long-term plan with $1 million worth of projects. And again, what we're doing is we're prioritizing the improvements. And we had, we had an emergency generator. That was scheduled to be replaced a few years from now, but there was a grant that came up from Homeland Security, $80,000 grant. We had matching money, so we moved that project up the ladder, so now we have a brand new $125,000 generator but we get $80,000 grant. So that went into this capital reserve account, really made it a very doable project, and we were able to move quickly. In 2016 and 17, we've been working on the engineering for the sludge storage building and pumps and buried valves and electrical system. Well, last winter we had the roof collapse on the on the sludge storage building, and as a result, we got an insurance claim. So we're using that money to go into this fund, and we are now working on that solution. Will be the spring when we rebuild that facility. Again, so this is a great fund. It's been helping us, and we're looking at, again, another $125,000 this year to complete the projects which we have laid out over the 8-year period. And again, it's hard to read, but all the little details, anyone who is interested in wastewater engineering or what's going on over there, be more than happy to fill you in. But I think that's all we have for the Capital Reserve Fund, and be more than happy to answer any questions. Battery?
Yeah. Seeing no questions for Dave, we'll move on to Article 29. I can use...
We have batteries right here. Run out of batteries.
You've obviously all been talking too long. So we'll move on to Article 29, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $75,000 to be added to the existing Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund, established for the purpose of making needed repairs and performing needed maintenance to the town's building facilities, to be under the custody of the trustees of the trust funds. The Board of Selectmen have been designated as agents to expend this capital reserve fund. The estimated tax rate impact for the 2018 year is 0.038 cents per thousand. This is unanimously recommended by the Selectmen and the Budget Committee, and Linda Marie is up on this one.
Warrant Article 29 is asking the voters to add $75,000 to an existing building maintenance capital reserve. When I came onto the Board of Selectmen in 2005, many of the town buildings needed to be repaired, painted, or upgraded to meet ADA requirements. Over the last 12 years, the town voters have supported improvements to buildings such as the train station, the Libby Museum, and the Town Hall, just to mention a few. This warrant article will provide funds to do emergency and needed repairs and maintenance to town buildings, and I'll turn it over to Dave Ford.
Okay, again, the problem being the town owns and is responsible for 23 buildings. And those don't include the enterprise fund, so the electric department, water department, those aren't those buildings, just the general government. These buildings have been maintained. Department heads are responsible for their individual buildings. So Cindy does the maintenance on the library, and she does a heck of a job over there. She calls us for help once in a while, but she is responsible, and we do have budgets to do the immediate things. However, bigger things like roofs, heating systems, plumbing systems have not been organized throughout all 23 buildings. And what we're working now is an asset management plan that we will be able to identify all the things in all the buildings which need repair or replacement, develop their replacement costs, and then develop a long-term schedule. That will come and support this. Right now, we're still kind of in the crisis management because we know we have problems. Again, the Dockside Restaurant was one that we started a small project, and all of a sudden we found out we had a major project. We had some serious issues. We'd not be able to open the restaurant without the funds that were available to us, and luckily we had them, and we were able to keep the restaurant open. So the solution was to create the capital reserve fund in 2016, and again, we are in process of doing the condition assessment of all the buildings. And then what we're looking at in 17, we put 50,000. This year we increased it to 75,000. So we are creeping this fund, and I do anticipate next year when we have the full building asset management plan there, we'll be able to defend another increase, and maybe we'll continue with small increases to work into it so we don't have that jump in the tax rate. But it is it's something the school department's been doing for years. They always have a building maintenance fund there, and it's something that we've been kind of pushing off. But I think in our push with asset management and looking at all infrastructure, it's a good program, and we hope that you'll support it in 2018. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Dave or any discussion on Article 29? Seeing none, we move on to Article 30, which is the Libby Museum feasibility study to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $75,000, of which amount 2/3 of the cost will be borne by private foundation and 1/3 by the town for the purpose of conducting a feasibility study and design options to best accommodate both the current Libby Museum collection and additions to it by improving in or expanding the existing historic museum building. Further, to authorize the selectmen to accept the monies from the private foundation to be used for said purpose. The amount to be raised by general taxation shall not exceed $25,000. The estimated tax rate impact for 2018 is 13 cents per thousand, or 0.013 cents per thousand. It's unanimously recommended by the selectmen as well as the Budget Committee, and Brad Harriman is up on this one. Brad?
Thank you, Randy. Last but certainly not least here, the Libby Museum has been offered a private collection of over 200 North American mammals that are in museum quality condition. Private foundation has stepped forward to fund 2/3 of the study, which will reduce the town's portion to $25,000. I urge the voters to support this article, and I'll turn it over to Dave for further details.
I'm filling in for Alana Albee, who couldn't be here tonight, but she had prepared the slides, and I'll do my best because I was involved in some earlier work on this, and this goes back to crisis management versus now looking long term. Again, this building was built in 1912. It's very historically significant. We did a lot of work back in 2010 to make it ADA accessible and to look at building code issues, and we replaced the septic system. Again, the interest of the building is here. If you've not been there, you should. It's a gorgeous building, and it's an incredible asset for the town. However, there are problems, and this is what I was not aware of until it was brought to our attention, that conserving and sustaining the museum, the exhibits are actually deteriorating slowly because of the environment. Dr. Libby's collection can no longer be sustained without heat and insulation. And then there are some technical studies that have gone into that. We've been working on more the crisis, keeping the building legal, keeping it ADA accessible, but this is now looking down the line. As Brad indicated, we have a potential donation of a very significant and beautiful collection, and we're trying to look at, is that feasible to be able to fit in this building and work, in addition, upgrading the building. So we're looking at a feasibility study, which will be done in 2 phases. In phase 1, we'll be looking at a couple of different schematic options of how we would use the existing and then the potential for the new collections and how they would work. We have to develop the general cost for that. And then the intent would be to have a presentation, discussion with stakeholders, get public input, and based on that, you come with a phase 2 in which we just select one of the options, and then they develop the construction documents and a detailed budget going forward. So that's what we have, and I'm sure with Brad's help, we'll be more happy to answer any questions on this proposal for the feasibility study.
Any questions for Dave or any discussion on Article 30?
I have this is one museum that all of you own.
All right, we'll move on to Article 31. Do you have a question?
How does the voluntary public support of the museum in terms of admission fees and cash donations compared to the cost of running the museum?
That's an excellent question. Elena, she's not here. I can't answer it, though. So the way I understand it, we have the Friends of Libby, and they work doing certain fundraisers, usually for specific projects. I think it is a voluntary. Brad, can you explain more?
Yeah, the Friends of Libby Museum prepare a budget each year, and parts that go towards redoing some of the old exhibits that are in the museum now. We've been going pick a few out every year and refurbish them. There's a lot of them in there that need to be updated and stuff. We're also working on the display cabinets, getting new glass tops, get them sealed so that they're ultraviolet protected and stuff there also. So that's part of that. The town operating budget pays the operating expenses of running the museum itself, as far as utilities, the wage for the director up there, things like that. So that's kind of the breakout of the two, how the two mingle there together, very basically.
I think it's $5 for an adult to get in, and children are free. And that goes in the general fund to offset the expense.
I don't think anyone has a precise breakdown for you. Any further questions? It's been moved to restrict reconsideration of Articles 27 through 30. Is there a second? All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Articles 7 through 30, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we will not revisit anything before Article 30. Article 31, to see if the town will vote to amend Article 22, approved by the voters at the 2017 town meeting by extending the deadline for the town's receipt of private funds from December 31, 2018 to December 31, 2021. The 2017 warrant Article 22 established a capital reserve fund for the purpose of renovating the old railroad freight house building at 61 Railroad Avenue, and raised and appropriated the sum of $95,000 to be placed in said capital reserve fund, and the town's expenditure of said amount was contingent upon the raising of private funds for said purpose. The expenditure of the funds appropriated by the town in 2017 shall continue to be contingent upon the town's receipt of private funds being raised for this purpose. The present article shall not raise any additional town funds. This has been recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 5 to 0. And who would like to address Article 31? John, are you up?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Sims. I'm president of the Lakes Region Model Railroad Museum, and our task is to rehab the freight shed to hold a museum. The challenge of taking a building that was never ever intended to have environmental control in it and installing it at a museum, which requires very tight environmental control, has proved to be a little more difficult than we originally thought. So we are asking for an extension of the time for us to complete the design, get the approvals, raise the funds, and do the rehab of the freight shed and install the museum. Any questions?
Any questions for John or any discussion of Article 31? Seeing none, we will move on to Article 32. Thanks, John. Article 32, to see if the town will vote to see if the town will adopt the provisions of RSA 80:52-A, which will authorize the prepayment of taxes and will authorize the collector of taxes to accept payments in prepayment of taxes. Recommended by the Selectmen on a vote of 4-0. Who would like to address Article 32? Dave Owen.
With the adoption of the new tax bill that the Congress passed a couple of months ago, we were suddenly inundated with telephone calls of people that wanted to prepay their real estate taxes before the end of 2017. For better or worse, the town of Wolfeboro had never adopted the state statute that allows the town to accept prepayment of real estate taxes. There is a statute, RSA 80:52-A, and so this would adopt local adoption of that statute. So if that situation ever presents itself in the future, that the town can accept prepayment of taxes. It's not going to do the people any good that weren't able to pay before December 31st, but this would be in case there's a similar situation in the future.
Is there any discussion on this? I know most of you would like to say, can I pay a year late? But these people want to pay early. We'll move on to Article 33, to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 47-1 entitled Distribution of Campaign Materials to read as follows. The distribution of campaign materials and electioneering is prohibited in the Town Hall rear parking lot and in the sidewalks adjacent to said parking lot during any election held at the Town Hall. Distributing campaign materials shall mean distributing, wearing, or posting any campaign materials in the form of a poster, card, handbill, placard, picture, pin sticker, circular, or article of clothing which is intended to influence the action of the voter within the town hall. Electioneering shall mean to act in any way specifically designed to influence the vote of any voter on any question. This has been recommended unanimously by the Selectmen. And is there any discussion on Article 33?
This was requested by our perennial town clerk, who pointed out that the current ordinance, town ordinance, is based on the old situation where the voting occurred in the courtroom downstairs, and so electioneering was prohibited in front of the town hall. Now the elections are up here, and so the electioneering would be prohibited in the parking lot and on the sidewalks adjacent to the rear parking lot.
John.
Yeah, I guess just for the town council, is there a state law that controls this, that says what you can do? Is there a state law?
The question is, for town council, does state law control this or weigh in on this, Mark?
The definitions of distributing campaign materials and electioneering are taken from state statutes, but it leaves it up to the localities to adopt those restrictions or not, and where they're adopted, where they're applicable.
Now, the way I read this, if I had an elect whoever bumper sticker on my car and I pulled in the back parking lot, I could be charged with this violation.
You hear what he said?
Sorry?
He said if he pulled into the parking lot with a bumper sticker supporting candidate X, could we tow his car?
You're not distributing campaign materials.
But that's not an issue. It says Distributing campaign materials should mean distributing, wearing, posting any campaign materials in the form for a poster, card, or handbill. If I've got a bumper sticker on my car that says vote for who, then I'm guilty of this violation. If I want to have a sign that says support the library,
Okay, the first,
out on the sidewalk, I couldn't do that.
I think the first part of it, though, is the first sentence about distributing campaign materials is restricted by the last phrase of within the town hall. In other words, you can't do those things within the town hall, so you can't bring your bumper sticker in with you.
That's
but
not
you
what
can
it
have
says.
it on your car.
That's not what it says. That's not what it says. I couldn't do any of that on the parking lot. I couldn't wear a sign that says vote for the library. I probably couldn't, if it was an election day, if we voted something, I probably couldn't wear this in the town hall or in the parking lot.
Yeah, no, I think it means you can't do those things where and so forth, et cetera, within the town hall.
But there is a state law that controls this, that all the towns go by, a particular state law.
There's not a statewide applicable law. No, it doesn't. Without adopting it at the local reg. What the state law allows is municipalities to restrict it where they see it appropriate. In this case, it's in the town hall rear parking lot and on the sidewalks adjacent to that parking lot.
Pat, doesn't the old one have a distance from the entrance, the old regulation?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, you got to talk into the microphone, right?
Didn't the old regulation have a certain distance, 100 feet or 50 feet, from the entrance point of the poles?
I don't know what the existing regulation provided, but it had, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's 10 feet.
You have the
There was
current
an
one?
aisle that we used to have to create, and I used to cleverly think I could make 10 feet weaves throughout the entire parking lot so that we could have anybody that wanted to put up a poster anywhere in the town they could. The goal was always to keep it off the church property when we were there for two reasons. We didn't own it. And we did have one car one year that clearly was supporting one candidate, and they wanted to leave it all day in the parking lot. We did ask them to move it with a little bit of testiness. And I think this is trying to solve the problem. I understand your issue, John, that you don't like the rear parking lot part of it.
No, I just don't like people's opinions stifled.
Yeah.
We should be able to go and talk in the parking lot about the issues that have pertained to the town on election day.
Yeah.
Mr. Hodder.
Michael Hodder. The way I read this, it reads, distributing campaign materials is prohibited in the town hall rear parking lot. What does distributing campaign materials mean? Trying to influence the vote of somebody inside town hall casting their vote.
That's how I would interpret it
Exactly,
as well.
but the point is that distributing outside in the town hall parking lot is prohibited by this because its intention is to stop influence of voters inside town hall, walking through the parking lot and seeing the campaign materials.
I see what you're saying.
So
That's not how I interpret it.
But I would feel the same as John does, that if I were to ride up in my car with a vote for Jim Crow on the bumper sticker, or somebody else, wrong example, I would be in violation.
Okay. Yeah, these definitions, both of distributing campaign materials and electioneering, were taken from verbatim from the state statutes, with one exception. There is a typo in line number 5. The next to the last word should be of instead of for.
Did the state statute 47-1 actually talk about town hall rear parking lot?
In the form of.
This is
It's not a state statute. This is chapter 47-1 of the town
The
regulations.
town regulations. I beg your pardon. You're correct there. Nonetheless, I would support John's reading of this, that it appears to prohibit campaigning in the parking lot with the intent of influencing people up here casting their votes. And I would feel that was a suppression of freedom of choice and freedom of speech. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Brian, you haven't said anything tonight. You got a microphone right in front of you.
I'm just wondering, would this apply to any voting that takes place during a deliberative session as well, or is it strictly an election day event?
I don't.
We do.
No. No.
All right, just we'll
No,
somebody want to
you're
raise their
not
hand if they
voting.
want to answer it? Mark?
No, I think the answer is no. Because you're not voting today. And it's talking about election day, town meeting day.
Suzanne?
I think under the moderator's purview over, you are in charge of voting day, election day, that this falls under your bailiwick, and I think there's a statute that states such that he sets the distance from the polls and that there is a certain minimum, and then after that, if you care to extend that further out so people can't be too close, I think it's under your jurisdiction. And then the second part would be, where are people going to allow to be campaigning? Because there is a certain balance that needs to happen, whereas the people that are running for office or proposing some sort of a change to something have a right to do that. And to put them somewhere down there is violating their civil rights. So it's up to the moderator. And I think if you go back, you'll find a statute somewhere that says the moderator shall set the distance from the poll and that there is a minimum.
Someone else want to weigh in on this? John?
Yes, I got to find a microphone. I think there's a problem here, and that is your interpretation might be fine for this week, next year, or something like that. But coming 5 years from now, somebody can interpret it completely different using these words. And I think it's a hazardous warrant article.
Any further discussion on Article 33? Dave?
Moderator, the question was posed, well, where can they distribute campaign materials and post their signs and what have you? And the answer is, well, out front, at the intersection, the sidewalks along the intersection with Main Street. I think the intent of the ordinance is that when people are getting out of their cars and coming into the polling place, that they don't want to be confronted with and have to run a gauntlet of people that are, you know, with their signs and handing out materials and such. That's electioneering. So electioneering has its place, but you know, as a voter, when I go to the polls, I don't want to be assaulted by people when I'm going into the polls, and I don't know how other people feel, but it's the way I do.
Any further discussions? Mr. Wood, Steve?
Steve Wood, Chairman of the Wolfeboro Police Commission. I was one of the guys that stood out of the sidewalk outside last winter in a blizzard seeking re-election, along with another gentleman running for state legislature who was not quite as successful. But we just basically stood there and held up signs. We didn't bother anybody, and we were given the instructions that we could be on that sidewalk, but not anywhere around the back of the building. And people were free to walk by. We didn't impede anybody. And the way that I read this, it says basically all adjacent sidewalks means it removes any type of anything from around this portion of the building, side or rear. Is that the correct? Okay.
Any further discussion?
Randy?
John?
Now, can I change the wording on this?
You can move to amend, and if the majority of us want to change it, they will.
Okay, I guess I'll do a motion to amend Article 33 to distribution distribution of campaign materials to read as follows. The distribution of campaign materials and electioneering is prohibited in the town hall, in the area of the town hall from the entrance of 75 feet from the voting door or the voting entrance. That's kind of rough, I guess.
So basically, you want to put a 75-foot restriction
from the entrance, whatever entrance they determine to be.
The rear entrance door.
Is that the only one that they're going to use to entered to vote? Is that usually going to be the door, or are they going to use the front door sometime?
I believe they only come in the back door.
Well, we encourage people to come in the back door, but people, you know, if we're open for business on voting day, people can still come through the front offices and...
Okay, so can we, 75 feet from the determined entrance to the polls on election day? Predetermined entrance to the polls, either being the front door or the rear door? What's that?
All right, so it's been moved and seconded to amend this article such that the restriction will be 75 feet from the entrance door to the polls. Is that what you were looking for, John?
Yes, sir.
All right, is there any discussion on that amendment? Dave Bowers.
Does that include the front of the building? How deep is the building? How about limiting it to the ground space, 75 feet from the door? Because otherwise you go through the town hall and you're getting into Main Street maybe at 75 feet.
Ann? Okay. Yeah, you're going to have to use a microphone. Can you, basically what you're saying, though, is there's a federal law that we should be looking at. Any further discussion on the amendment?
I don't know.
Could you read the amendment, Mr. Moderator?
So the substance of the amendment is that the area that's restricted is 75 feet from the entrance to the polls.
Is that the door?
All right. Is there any discussion on that? Any further?
It's my understanding.
The question was, what about John's bumper sticker? And I presume that they would have to stay 75 feet away from the door.
Randy, can I strike everything after that? Can I amend my motion to strike everything after that?
Well, no, because now you're trying to change an amendment we got on the floor. Let's vote the first thing. They're up or down. If you want to come back and change it again, we can.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on the 75-foot restriction? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All's opposed?
Oh, no.
I think the noes have it, unless the ayes would like a show of hands. Is there any further amendments or discussion on Article 33? Suzanne?
To insert electioneering prohibited in the town hall and as determined by the moderator.
Is there a second to that? We've got a couple of seconds. Is there any discussion on that amendment?
Striking everything after that?
The gist of that amendment was to restrict the area, instead of what it reads now, to be in the town hall, which would be inside the building as I understood it, and is determined by the moderator. Is there any discussion on that? Mr. Hodder.
With all due respect to our moderator, I think it puts too much power in the hands of a moderator. As Mr. Burt said, we may feel quite content with the reasonableness of our current moderator, but in 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or grant you even more longevity, 50 years from now, who knows who our moderator might be. I think, personally, I would leave this up to the wisdom of the voters. I think this is a flawed article, and they will see that and strike it down.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, which is to restrict the area to in the town hall and is determined by the moderator, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the nays have it. That amendment fails as well. Any further discussion? Mr. Thurston, you've been quiet this evening.
Yes, thank you. John Thurston. I'd like to add the amendment 50 feet from any entrance into the building of the town hall.
All right, is there a second to that? All right, so it's been moved and seconded to restrict the distance from 50 feet to any entrance in the building. Any discussion on that amendment? Yes, sir.
My name is Blair Moffett. Having been among those who stand out doing this electioneering, I would plead for some common sense about the space and the protection that voters need legitimately. If you restrict the area 50 feet from any entrance to this building, you essentially make it impossible to use the sidewalk in front or the sidewalk along Union Street. And where else does one go than to do this very appropriate kind of representation? So it seems to me that the original motion of the parking lot and limiting the electioneering as people enter through this door is quite reasonable, and we don't need to refine it a whole lot more than that.
Any further discussion on the amendment?
If we change that word to abutting.
All right, seeing none, we're going to vote on what's been a third amendment to restrict the distance from any entrance to the building to 50 feet. Now, all those in favor of that amendment, please say aye. All those opposed? Nay. Right, the noes have it. Is there any further discussion? Kathy?
I'll give it a go. How about it would read, the distribution of campaign materials and electioneering is prohibited in the town hall and the town hall rear parking lot. And then strike the rest part and it says during any election held at the town hall. That would allow the front and the side. Wouldn't be any fun without those folks out there.
So what you're trying to take out is the sidewalks? Is that the
The only place that it would be restricted is in the town hall and in the rear, in the town hall rear parking lot. So it's prohibited in the town hall and the town hall rear parking lot during any election held at the town hall.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion regarding that amendment? All right, seeing none, amendment number 4 is to try to restrict electioneering inside the town hall or in the rear parking lot. All those in favor of that amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I think that one passed, unless someone would like a show of hands. All right, so that's been amended to restrict it to those areas. And I'll let the clerk figure out how exactly that's going to get worded. Is there any further discussion on Article 33 as amended? Mr. Wood.
Point out, Mr. Moderator, New Hampshire State Law RSA 659:43 under electioneering. Each polling location, there is a no electioneering zone which begins at the entrance to the polls and extends out in a 10-foot wide access path to the polling location. And this is in accordance with that state law.
Any further comments or discussion? All right, I think we've spent a lot of time on that. Let's move to the last one, which is Article 34. We do have at least 2 items of new business, but 34. Are you in favor of electing the Zoning Board of Appeals as allowed in accordance with state statute RSA 673:3? It's been submitted by petition. Who would like to address Article 34? Suzanne?
It's pretty straightforward. It gives the citizens of the town the opportunity to elect another board. We elect the Budget Committee and the Planning Board and our Board of Selectmen. So it's just simply a democratic option that's available to the citizens and voters of the town. It gives a chance to vet them and hear what they have for views on zoning through Candidates Night and the newspaper that publishes candidates' opinions. And that's about it. The statute sets up the mechanism as to how it's implemented.
Any discussion on this article? I did have one question for you, Suzanne. The word zoning board of appeals, should that have been adjustment? You know,
It's an interchangeable word, but the statute does say Board of Adjustments and Building Code of Appeals. So it's, they've gone to council, this question's gone to council. The New Hampshire Municipal Association didn't have an issue with it, but it's a simple amendment. If anyone feels it should be amended, I'd be more than happy to do that.
I did read the statute, that's why I thought it should have been adjustment, but makes no difference to me, your petition.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I said I thought the statute had used the word adjustment as opposed to appeals, the only reason I brought it up.
It does. It specifically says Zoning Board of Adjustments and Building Code Board of Appeals. That's the title.
Those are two different boards.
But we are. Where I use the statute number, I think that clarifies it. If I had used a different statute number, then it would have been an issue. I checked with the municipal on it, and they're okay with it.
But your intent is the Zoning Board of Adjustment, not the Building Code Board of Appeals.
Well, you know, I went back in the records, back into the archives, and I really can't find out just exactly what the town did establish.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Owen.
Well, just for the record, we just printed it as the petition warrant article was submitted, so that's exactly the wording as submitted.
Fully understand.
I didn't understand.
Basically, what I've read is what you submitted on your petition, which the town is required to follow what you submitted. So, Mr. Hodder, you had some follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to make an amendment to change this article to change the word appeals to adjustment.
Is there any discussion regarding that proposed amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, it's been amended. Is there any discussion on it as amended?
As amended, yes, please. Now that we've taken care of the housekeeping business, there are 4 boards in this town which have influence and authority over the lives and welfare of our citizens: the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, the Budget Committee, and the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Of those 4 boards, 3 are elected by the public. The Zoning Board of Adjustment is appointed, membership is appointed by the Board of Selectmen, elected by the public. This amendment, this article, would create an elected Zoning Board of Adjustment. It would happen very simply as each currently appointed member of the Board of Adjustment's term expired, an election would be held at the regular election time for his replacement. The intention being at the end, all 5 current sitting appointed members of the ZBA will have been replaced by 5 elected members of the ZBA, staggered terms, so we would have a continual turnover. The point of the article is to get fresh new blood onto the ZBA, people who are not currently sitting, people who have not been currently sitting on the ZBA for quite a time. I've been on the ZBA for, I think, about 11 years now, as both chairman and as vice chairman. I think it's time to allow the public to choose the members of the Board of Adjustment as they do the other 3 boards in this town who are also elected, to give them a chance to serve on the board, to give them a chance to see who is standing for the board, to hear them on candidates night, to ask them questions, none of which they're able to do currently, because the current arrangement, the Board of Selectmen requests volunteers to serve on the ZBA. The Board of Selectmen receives indications of interest. The Board of Selectmen then make choices of the people who have applied, and those people are never put before the public. They're never asked what their attitudes are towards this, that, or the other zoning matter, and they serve on the ZBA for a term of 3 years at the pleasure of the Board of Selectmen. I think it would make it fairer and more democratic if we had an elected ZBA. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 34? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to restrict reconsideration of all Articles 9 through 34. Somebody like to make that motion? There's a second? All right, all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Articles 9 through 34, please say aye. All right, so we will not revisit those. There's a couple of matters of new business. One, we have Candidates Night, March 5th at the library, and you're all invited to that. I believe it starts at 7 o'clock, and Luke Freudenberg had something he wanted to say as well. So, Luke, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Over the next several weeks, Wolfeboro is going to begin the process of selecting a new town manager. And I want to take a moment. Since 2006, Dave Owen, our current town manager, served the town of Wolfeboro in this role. And he has spent 12 years providing dedicated, steadfast judgment work on behalf of the town and on behalf of this board and previous boards. Now, this is not the first community that Mr. Owen has served in such a capacity, but after a career spent in this sector, Mr. Owen will be retiring. And during his tenure, many things have changed here in Wolfeboro, and much improvements have been made to our infrastructure. And after many years of waiting, voters approved the rehabilitation of this building and the room where we currently sit. And I was just thinking back of some key words or phrases that kind of highlight the person that I've come to know, and I came with the phrases sound judgment, detail to practice, and excellent communication to the board have been hallmarks of the time spent serving with this board. And as a little bit of humor, I was thinking of some phrases that he probably will never say again in the course of his retirement. And the best one I thought was fictitious litigant. That'll probably be something that'll never come out of your mouth again. However, that very same fictitious litigant, I'm sure, will drag you into court at some point in the next couple of years. So, many long nights spent attending meetings will hopefully be replaced by much earned time off, perhaps riding a motorcycle or traveling. But on behalf of this Board of Selectmen, and I'm sure previous boards, I'd like to thank you for the work you've done over the last 12 years and wish you the absolute best in your retirement.
Sure.
Very briefly, I just want to say that it's been...
He wants to object to the motion.
It's been a great experience. It's been a pleasure to serve the town and all of you, and I think we have gotten a lot done over the last 10 or 12 years in the community, and much that I'm very proud of, improvements to the facilities and the infrastructure and the services of the town. And I want to reciprocate a little bit and thank all of you. I mean, you're really the people, the volunteers and the employees, the department heads that make this community work. And let me thank you for all that you do and will continue to do for the town of Wolfeboro. Thank you.
Pat Waterman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We also have Peter Chamberlain. He's our finance director. He will be retiring this year, and this will be his last deliberative session. And he watches out for all your finances for the town of Wolfeboro. He works well with all the department heads, the employees, and the residents of Wolfeboro. And I'd like to wish him a lot of happiness and luck in his endeavors when he retires. One more. And I have one more thing, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, Ms. Waterman.
Once again, the town has lost residents who have contributed in one way or another for the good of the town of Wolfeboro and its residents. Bernard Radigan served as a member of the Wolfeboro Police Department in various roles, a ballot clerk for my elections. He made sure my ballots were there on time. I don't care what time it was. And he also got the Purple Heart twice. A true American and a very good friend of all of us. Roger Moody. I don't know if all of you knew Roger, but he served on the Board of Adjustment, the Planning Board, and the Lakes Region Planning Commission. And he always had the best interests of the town and its residents in mind. And as was quoted in his obituary, Roger was a true Yankee who would use things up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. Also quoted, Roger was a quiet man with a great sense of humor. He did not talk much, but when he did speak, you wanted to pay attention. Jean Harriman, Brad's mom, wife, mother, grandmother, teacher, dedicated her life to this town and its residents. She was a trustee of the Wolfeboro Public Library for 27 years and wrote the grant application that resulted in the new library that is in the 1970s that residents and visitors still enjoy today. Rest in peace, my friends. We will all be missing you. Thank you.
And then I've been asked to read on behalf of the selectmen just a paragraph that the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen are seeking applications from the community and business leaders and yourselves, town department heads, employees, and any other residents who will be willing to participate in the selection process for choosing the next town manager. These volunteers will serve on one of 3 interview panels that will interview candidates for the town manager position and will make recommendations about their preferred candidates to the Board of Selectmen. The Selectmen panel's recommendations will be advisory in nature, and the final decision regarding the selection of the new town manager will rest with the Board of Selectmen. The selected panelists must be able to meet all day on March 14th, 2018. If you're interested in participating, please contact the Board of Selectmen or via email at the town manager at wolfeboronh.us. Is there any further new business?
Mr. Moderator, I do have one more thing. Thomas O'Dowd has been a supervisor of the checklist for 50 years this year. He was elected in 1968. Congratulations.
He's only 49. Is there any other new business? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Those opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned. Thanks very much for coming.